We're live.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, but tonight we're doing something different. It has reached our. We've been on air for 5 years now. Wow. That's it's a lot of films gone past. But in any case, we've decided to do something different with some of our months and give our prospective members a month to give us a chance to see what is up our film sleeves. So, Jake, take it away and tell us what film you decided to show to us and what it's all about.
Okay, all right. So we're kicking off this whole thing with what I have dubbed Filmmaker February, even though technically it's just my choice. For the month. I like my alliterative titles. Dang it. So y'all are going to enjoy it. And I thought it would be, or else. And I thought it would be fun to just spend a month looking at some of my favorite filmmakers and some filmmakers that I think are like really important / influential filmmakers. There were a lot of contenders, and it was hard narrowing it down. And some of you will be very happy to know that this, it could have gone a lot more esoteric and artsy than it did. But I'm sure some of you don't believe me at this very moment, but we'll get into that with the discussion, I'm sure.
Oh, I can believe it, dude. Next time he's going to offer cheeses to pair with the movies.
Well, I think it was Kroll that said, thank God there were... I think it was Kroll that said, thank God there were no French films.
I did.
You came very, very close to a Spanish film. So
that's okay. It's not French.
Oh, that's true. But at any rate, for the first one, we're kicking off with the late Robert Altman, who had a lengthy and storied career on television and later on film. And we are kicking off with one of his final and most popular films, the most acclaimed films, the British period drama Gosford Park, 2001 film. Per IMDb, the film is set in the 1930s. This movie brings a group of pretentious, rich, and famous together for a weekend of relaxation at a hunting resort. But when a murder occurs, each one of these interesting characters becomes a suspect. Not 100% on point, but IMDb almost never is. But, gives you the basic gist of it. So, before we go any further on the movie itself, let's go ahead and do a round of first impressions. And I think I'm going to start looking at this picture. Why don't I just start going up? And we'll do it that way. So, Kroll, is this your first encounter with this film, and what are your thoughts?
It is my first and last. If that tells you anything. Okay, so I didn't hate the movie, but neither did I like it. I did get interested in the movie, but I'll go into a little bit later what really ticked me off about the movie. I'm not ready for that yet, but we'll get into that. So, some of the characters are very interesting, and even some of the servants who were not considered suspects were interesting. So, yeah, IMDb was definitely wrong because some of the servants were very interesting, and for some reason the servants they skipped the servants. Like, no way can a servant do it, which is retarded as well. Because who else would have cause to murder someone, then a stupid butler or maid has to do all that bidding, even if it is their job. But in my opinion, I think they might be more of a suspect than most people. But
I mean, nowadays maybe.
well, true it is. And that was another thing is I was told it was a period piece, and I had no fucking clue what period it was until you just said it, 1930s. I had no idea. I mean, I could tell it was older, but I had no idea it was the 30s. There was nothing much to give it away for me. I mean, I'm not an expert on the 30s, so if I was, maybe I would have seen a lot more of what gave it the time away. But I'm not.
I think it says 1932 in the movie, though.
Yeah.
I missed that, and somehow I don't know. Maybe it was my copy. I mean,
Okay.
the version I saw, I don't know. But anyways, the period, it did not represent what I know of the 30s at all. So I mean, again, I'm not any kind of expert at all. Which if I was, maybe I'd feel different. But that's my basic viewing and feeling.
I think our 30s
Right.
is a little different from the English 30s.
Oh,
you know,
very
like,
much so.
If the
There is
movie
that
producer
as
guy
well.
had been talking like, "Hey, we're gonna make a picture, kid," and you might have picked up on it, but
Right.
he wasn't.
There's a lot of
that is true.
There's actually the film is actually dripping in the 1932. It's very specifically set there, but you're right. Like if you don't know that going in and you're not an expert on the time, it doesn't hit you over the head with it either. It's
Exactly.
kind of So
and if you, like he pointed out, it's England, which I mean, okay,
Right.
I have a love and hate relationship. Some English movies I absolutely love, especially comedies. Some others, I'm like, this is a comedy. Like I don't get it at all. Like I've seen a few English comedies that I'm like, I didn't laugh once, and then there's others I laugh my ass off. So there's definitely a big difference between the English comedies and American comedies.
One could say the same about American comedies, though.
I agree. Yes, there are sometimes. There are a few movies.
Red Dwarf is an English comedy.
Yeah.
There's a few movies that in American that I agree that I don't know why they're considered a comedy because they're not funny.
Paul
but-
Blart Mall Cop 2.
That is way more funnier than that other movie.
I don't know. The first Paul Blart was funny, but anyway,
yeah.
I'm going to beat that horse for years. I'm sure of it. It's when you go see a movie for free and think you overpaid, then that's saying something.
I probably own Paul Blart too.
Well, like I said, when I saw Napoleon Dynamite, I wanted my time back. I lost. Like I don't care about the money. I wanted my time. I felt like I wasted 2 hours of my life.
So that's a good.
That was.
That's a good segue because I know Mo would disagree with you on that.
Oh, I know. We had this discussion.
So Mo, is this your first encounter with Gosford Park, and what are your thoughts on it?
It is. I still think Gosford Pork is a brilliant idea, and I hope that it happens. But time will tell.
I'm sure that'll be the porn parody.
Yeah, we can work
There's one already.
several different angles on that one.
They pork each other.
That's what
I
she said.
absolutely loved this movie, dude. I think that it's a fairly brilliant little murder mystery film. I think that it largely depends, though. I can totally see why someone wouldn't like it. It all depends on how you approach it. It's a movie, but it's not a movie. It's a game. It's a murder mystery game. And all of that, slow burn build up to the murder mystery and then the eventual reveal is to get you guessing, to get you kind of thinking about who's the killer before the event has even taken place. There's lots of little nods to who might do it. They do a good job of setting up people with motive and opportunity and the means to carry it out. I thought that the, juxtaposition but similarities between the people under the stairs, as you referred to them, Jake, and the rich people up in the dining halls and crap was really neat. I could have probably watched several episodes of just that, So I guess, isn't Downton Abbey kind of like that?
Very much so, and we'll get into Downton.
Yeah.
Will definitely be mentioned a few times.
Downton Abbey
not
is
only-
more dramatic.
Right, but it focuses more on like that type of a relationship.
I think a show would have been better because one of the biggest gripes is there was too many people.
There's a lot.
Downton definitely has this similar kind of split focus of the upstairs, downstairs, but it does take a lot longer over many episodes, so there is time to get to know everyone and all that kind of stuff.
Julian
And
he had involvement in this film.
And actually, I didn't realize this before.
Downton Abbey.
Yeah, I didn't realize this before, but Downton originally started as an idea as a spin-off of this.
Yes,
and the fellows decided to take it in a different direction and do something more independent.
I mean, honestly, Robert Altman would have been involved had he not died. He would have been involved.
Yeah, he died.
That was prevalent in my head the whole time watching it. You guys mentioning that show off and on since I've known you. And, this really got me thinking like, oh, shit, if Downton Abbey is just more of this, then I'm definitely going to start watching it. Because I just liked watching the whole.
Downton Abbey is a drama. It's kind of romance too. So
I'm with that. I don't even need murder. Like that part of the movie was just fun for me to watch it play out.
There's murder.
I mean, like I said, I probably like Downton Abbey way better than this because you have a chance to.
I think that
know where everybody is, even though there is a lot of people. But you have way more chance to get to know them.
Yes, this definitely is a movie I could see enjoying watching multiple times just for the mental exercise of doing like the yarn spider web on the wall, like connecting all the relationships in this movie.
Which I mean, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that
obviously not something that's going to be enjoyable for everyone, but I could see myself doing it. I was super glad that I'm not sure how you guys missed who the murderers or murderer it was. They explain it at the end of the movie.
Spoilers are going to be involved.
I know who stabbed him. Like, that's easy. Yeah, they tell you. But who? Okay, obviously the other one's the one I don't know.
No, they tell you the other one.
I don't want to get into it now.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay. Let's get on to more people and their first impressions before we start getting too crazy.
But I'm not alone in that. So.
Yeah, I know Kim's chomping at the bit to talk about that.
Oh, sure. Definitely, this was one though that I was glad that I was able to, accept their explanation of who did it. I guess because I was nervous that I wouldn't figure it out, and then like I'd be deprived of being able to figure it out because of this conversation. So this might be one of those only movies that we've rented or that we've watched where it was like
conversation. But and I also wanted to know, but
See, I was really nervous that I wasn't gonna get it because I wanted to be able to figure it out. So this might have been the only movie we've ever done. Where
because I
was kind of bummed that we had to discuss it afterwards. If I had figured it out,
I wonder if I shouldn't have said this up front, and I guess I'll go ahead and put it out there now. Although I didn't really know about it until I watched the first of the commentary tracks, so like maybe 3 days ago. But Robert Altman described this not as a whodunit, but a who cares whodunit.
That's kind of what it does become. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, it was still a mystery whether the guy deserved to die or not. And I still wanted to know who did it, and I still was trying to figure it out.
Right. There is still that nice feeling of being able to.
I get the guy was an asshole, and obviously anyone could have killed him because he was. And so, kind of like that JR on that Dynasty thing, which was huge for like 2 decades or whatever, which I never watched, but I heard about it. So it's just one of those things.
So
I know who did it.
So Mo, are you? Is that your
basically
take on it?
I mean, it's less of a movie, more of a game that's meant to be played several times. I feel like
Good times. What about you, Dave?
Who's a better game?
See, I remember when this movie came out. I remembered seeing the cast that was for it. Knew that Clive Owens is a phenomenal actor. Maggie Smith, God bless her heart. She is a godsend to this movie because other than that, this movie was ass.
Which one was her?
She was the old lady.
You miss McGonagall? McGonagall from Harry Potter?
Yeah, McGonagall, yeah.
I get that this is this is supposed to be like Downton Abbey, and I love Downton Abbey. I've seen I went and saw the movie, loved the movie, loved Downton Abbey.
Not like this.
Because Downton Abbey gives you a chance to get to know the characters.
This movie was levels of ass. This movie was levels of ass. First of all, I fell asleep during it. I'm sorry, but it is so fucking slow. It is so fucking slow. I wanted to take a gun and shoot myself in the fucking mouth so that I wouldn't be here tonight.
And I think it took like an hour and 20 minutes before we even got the murder. Never mind.
Right.
Yeah. As
I actually forgot there was a murder until it happened. I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
I appreciate this movie for showing the different levels of society. I mean, mostly when you get a stuffy, high class, rich society movie,
especially English.
English. You don't normally see the other side of things.
The other side was great, but they were wicked Gosford.
I do appreciate.
And some of them were stuffy too.
The open window into what happens behind the scenes.
Oh yeah.
But other than that, the murder part was set up good, but the aftermath was terrible. And I'm sorry, but if you were looking for like a murder mystery to go along with this, what murder? I don't know. It just didn't appeal to me. I mean, twice.
Yeah, but it was awesome.
I will say I enjoyed the maid. That one poor
she's my favorite character.
And other than that, everyone else was forgettable. I'm sorry.
Well, as we've said before, one of the fun things about this is getting different opinions, and I had a feeling when I trotted out a Robert Altman film I would get some divisiveness, but I didn't realize I would have people on polar opposites.
Uh-oh.
He disappeared.
What?
It turns out it was Jake all along.
Oh, I just cut myself off, didn't I? Okay. So that was weird. Anyway, so how about I guess Brandon and Kim, I'll let you guys decide what order you want to present here.
Dave, you can go first.
Oh, I'm not going to come down on it like Dave did. But
because you still have to share a bed in a house with me.
So
she knows where you live.
I get where Dave comes from in a way, but I think that's more out of expectations. Because I saw this when it first came out in the theaters, and I was psyched about it because I was fascinated by the old school mansion murder mysteries genre of films and shows. Usually they were lighter or comedic, like Clue, or sometimes more dramatic, like The Orient Express, a good example. It's a murder mystery mansion, but it was a train mystery.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So so I came in this with that approach, looking for that level, that exact thing. But that's not what Gosford Park is about. So I was extremely disappointed with it when I first saw it. But I sat on it, and then I came back to it later, thinking more on it, and knowing now what to expect when I was going in, I was able to appreciate it for a lot of different aspects. There was the excellent music, the quite deep writing of the characters. All the characters were very well written. The interactions, the various ways that they were getting conversations in a realistic manner at the downstairs part of the estate as far as the upstairs, and of course Maggie Smith, as within Downton Abbey, also in this steals the show,
of course.
But also a great group of actors in it, and whereas the detective was one of my favorite parts the first time I saw it, he still holds a lighthearted bit for the second part, but not nearly as much as as it was.
Turn that damn thing off.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be easy for someone to go into this and think that they're gonna get like some of the more campy, fun elements of that type of stuff, where it's like a bunch of pacing and pipe smoking and finger pointing and, oh, where were you this evening, Miss Beauregard? But that's not really what we're dealing with here. And you can tell that like 20 minutes into it that they're doing the whole, like upstairs, downstairs soap opera kind of angle, but with, all these smarmy fuckers,
Well, for me, the first time I saw this, I did not see it when it first came out. I don't remember it when it first came out. I saw it about, I want to say 12 years ago, because of Downton Abbey. My ex got me into Downton Abbey. And I was like, holy shit, because I had been kind of curious about the World War I era and the Edwardian period, because in college, I didn't study a lot of British history. In college, my focus was, my degree is in history, but my focus was Nazi Germany history and postmodern warfare. Yeah. So like I was that person, studying Greek fire and how to make nuclear bombs and stuff, from a history, political science perspective. And I was pre-law. When I discovered, Gosford Park, I said, okay, well maybe this could be my focus for grad school for my master's in history, and I immersed myself in the Edwardian period because I was fascinated by it. I was like, wait a minute. So here we have this period of decadence, of just extravagance, of these rich people in the country with these giant estates, with these, all these servants about, all this money and everything. I was like, oh my God, I love this. And what's really funny is that when people say, oh, the Edwardian period, it was a very short time period. By the time this movie takes place, the Edwardian period was already over. This is someone who's new money. He ain't old money. That's why so many people look down on him. He's new money, but he's got a lot of it. The main character. And I was like, okay, I fucking love this movie. I went through a phase, I would say, when the business I worked for was basically going out of business and I lost my job. I had like a few months where I was out of work and I was trying to get back into the library, or get into the library field. I was like, okay, well, while I'm applying to different library systems, I will just watch this movie. And I watched this movie pretty much every day, to the point where I had lines memorized. I was reading everything I could on the Edwardian period and the Edwardian period on these great estates in England. And then I said to myself, why the hell did I not study this in college when I had the chance? Why was I so focused on Nazi Germany and fucking warfare? What the hell is wrong with me? I was like, yeah, that fucking degree, that really did me a lot of fucking good. I was like, are you kidding me? When people were like, so what did you study in college, Kim? History? Oh, so what was your focus? World War II. Oh, World War II. So what part made you Nazi Germany? Oh, but you're black. Yeah, I'm aware of that, Karen. So I'm like, but I tell people I love Edwardian history. I love research history. That's a much more feminine like pursuit when it comes to history. So I'm really pissed off because like the college I went to, my university, we had an excellent English and British studies professor. He was excellent. And I'm so mad that I didn't get a chance to study under him before he passed away. So I'm like, damn, I had a golden opportunity. And so that's why I love this movie. That's why I love Downton Abbey so much. And that's why I love Upstairs, Downstairs, and so many other films and books and shows that are based off of this time period, because it's fucking fascinating. The fact that there are people who lived like that, where you had someone catering to your every fucking need. Like, how must that be? Like, I want to know how that is, The closest that we will ever get to that going on a cruise.
Unless they reestablish the manor house and we get to play the royal family.
Oh, we are never applying for that. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Like, if you like Gosford Park or Downton Abbey, there was a PBS documentary series that was like Real World, but for living during a certain time period. It was called Manor House, where they took a group of people and they had them playing the servants for several months. Then they had a whole family living upstairs where they were the upstairs rich people. And they all lived together in this manor house for months. It was a social experiment. I have that on DVD. It's a fucking amazing show. I hated the father of the family before the end of the show. But yes, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. Hands down. Dave, I know.
Very good.
You're not going to, you think I'm crazy, but
I think
bottom line.
No,
one of my favorite movies.
see,
Filming technique,
I think this movie is good for some people who enjoy and get excited about this kind of world, and I appreciate it for showing us the windows of the different viewpoints of the servants. But Downton Abbey and Upstairs does it way fucking better. I'm sorry.
maybe.
Very
down.
PC of you. I think she's
Honestly,
just crazy.
I've seen both series, and
Sorry, Kim.
this movie
I
does
love
not.
this movie. I love this movie so much. I bought the soundtrack. That's how much I love this movie. And
Well, it's an excellent soundtrack.
I'm glad that
Soundtrack is better than the movie.
I'm glad that you enjoy it. I will never see this movie again.
I mean, Dave, I can recommend some stuff to you. If you're very curious about the lives of servants, I can recommend some stuff to you. Honestly, I mean, as far as drama is concerned, Downton Abbey, Upstairs, Downstairs is really great. But here's the thing. Gosford Park, in the way that the servants were treated, in the way that they were supposed to behave, is much more accurate. In the way that they treat the visiting servants by calling them by the names of their employer, that's accurate. You know, you were not a person to them. You were pretty much fucking invisible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the way, I mean, they're fitting a lot into a little space, even though it is a fairly long movie. But, you know, if this were a show, the murder mystery element of it wouldn't have taken up as much of the time that we would have had developing with all those characters. So.
Right. And there's also some other aspects, which, of course, I'll mention shortly with the fact that this is a Robert Altman film. But anyway, Kim, was that pretty well does it for your
Yeah.
Okay.
As you know, I fucking love this movie.
Cool. And like I said, it's exciting to have people on both ends of the spectrum. I think this could make for a fun discussion. Forrest, is this your first time with this movie? And what are your thoughts?
Well, this is my first time watching this movie all the way through. Because I remember years ago, I think it was my aunt rented it. I was staying at my aunt's house and she rented it. I watched part of it, but kind of just tuned out. And so flash forward 20 years, and I'm watching it in its entirety. And I still kind of found myself tuning out. Not saying this is bad, but I'm not saying this is a bad movie, but it's just the pace, because it's a very, compared to say Clue or Knives Out, this is a very slower paced film. I know it was slower, and it was much slower burn, but after a while, I just found myself becoming disengaged with it. I guess maybe, you know, like what Mo was saying, you probably have to watch it it's a game you've got to play it a few times. Should probably watch it a few more times. Should probably watch it a few more times to really appreciate it. Excellent cat, but I will say though the cat. I mean, this is something you come to expect from Robert Altman. Is the cat is the cast. It's
Talent. I like the cost. You know, the very interesting look at interesting look at class, especially in that time period. Back in in the 30s. Class in Great Britain in the 30s. I definitely like the look. You know, the look at that whole foggy English countryside look. But other than that, it was just really hard. I just found it really hard to get engaged with this movie. I mean, as a teenager, it wasn't really my thing, and as an adult, I think it's just going to take it would have to take a few more viewings for me to really get
engaged with it.
All right. And Tammy, how about you?
It was my first time watching it, and I honestly don't care to watch it again. It put me to sleep. I really did not get into it at all. I don't know. It just, David was having problems with it too. We even rewatched part of it, and it's just, I'm sorry, it just wasn't my thing. I do appreciate the costumes and the actor, the actors that were in it and everything, and but I just couldn't get into it. Sorry.
No, it's quite all right. I mean, like I said, it's fun to hear some different takes, and maybe by the end of the discussion, we'll get a couple of you curious enough to give it another try. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even as much as I liked it, it's definitely one of those movies where I could totally understand how some people would be exactly the opposite of that.
And I will say a couple of things straight up front. And one is, the first time I saw this movie, I had trouble keeping the characters straight. And I don't know that I really heard very many of you saying that explicitly, but I know it's an issue with the film. There are a lot of people. And repeat viewings are almost necessary to get that. But in the commentary, Altman straight up said, I don't care if you get everything on the first viewing. Basically he puts it out there and you get what you get. Most kind of right. It's kind of like a puzzle or a game or whatever. It's kind of an interactive process with a Robert Altman film. The only previous one we've done on this channel, Popeye, is a whole lot simpler because it's a much smaller cast. But
it's not a cartoon.
Right. Which
and
also,
despite Robin Williams not loving his role in it, it was still an awesome film.
Popeye is an oddity in the Robert Altman of her, but that's one thing about him, and I'll get to that in a minute. But just another example, I think Brandon was the one who mentioned that initial disappointment gave way to appreciation. Altman had a habit. He did this a lot. He would pick something and do sort of a genre film, but intentionally and immediately subvert expectations. And the one film by him I did see in theaters was his swan song, A Prairie Home Companion. And I came away from it deeply disappointed because it was not the radio show. Mm-hmm. But when I thought about it, I'm like, it's an elegy. That's what it is. It's an elegy. And then when I went back and watched it, and now I love it. Absolutely. It's one of my favorite films he ever did. But you have to sometimes recalibrate how you approach them. And so, yeah, I do think he's someone that requires repeat viewing. So this is coming as well from someone who has seen most of his films either not at all or only once. So I've actually only had repeat viewings on 4 of them. This one, Prairie Home Companion, MASH, and Popeye. So I need repeat viewings on the others. But anyway,
I was going to say MASH is the one that I really got like on the first go that I got into.
I loved MASH from the word go. It is my favorite film he's done.
My mother loved MASH. I was not a fan of the TV show or the movie at all. I actually like the TV show slightly better than the movie.
A lot of people had very differing opinions.
I've seen a lot more of MASH, the TV show, myself. I have not seen the movie.
I like the actors in the TV show more than the actors in the movie.
The TV show,
that's one that was kind of divisive. Like, some people love the movie and hate the show. Some people love the show and hate the movie. Some people have read the book and don't care for either of the film versions. So it just depends.
I remember the game that girls played. Like, we gonna marry? What kind of house do you live in? MASH.
Right.
Married, apartment, house, or shack.
No, I don't think I know that.
Yeah, that's what it matches. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, so as far as this one goes, Gosford Park. The first time I saw it on the wave of all that buzz that it got, all the Oscar buzz and the Golden Globes, all that stuff. And I went into it with very high expectations. And I think I was a little confused at first. I think I was a little nonplussed. But luckily, when I saw this, I was kind of at the height of my pretentious critic phase, so I was perfectly happy to spend 2.5 hours watching a very artsy film. And also in college, so I had more expendable time.
See, you're
And
artsy, but I don't really see it as artsy. Like, not.
Well, I do, but not in the. I'll get to that in just a minute. But, I'll go ahead and say one thing that characterizes Altman's films, from my experience, and Popeye again is an odd one because he was doing a rendition of a cartoon, basically. Most of his films are he's very interested in kind of capturing a piece of reality, if that makes sense. Like, his films have a sort of almost a documentary or docudrama feel because he puts tons of effort into period research. He put tons of effort into setting up the world that the characters live in, like whether it's 1932 British Manor or backstage at a nationally syndicated radio show, or on the front, on the Korean War, or whether it's the bars and dives of Nashville. I mean, he put so much effort into creating that world and into getting realistic portrayals from his actors, so that they're not. And I think one of the biggest differences between this and Downton, for example, is Downton is more traditionally acted. Like, it's more traditionally, you got sets, you got people who follow their marks and deliver their lines and all this stuff in a semi-realistic modern way, but in an actorly way. Whereas with this one, he had everyone individually mic'd, he had multiple cameras, and actors literally didn't know if they were going to be in any given scene.
Well, they weren't individually mic'd. He had microphones all over the place, I thought.
Well, no, everything I've read is that he has a long-standing practice of miking the actors.
Yeah, I read for Gosford Park, he had multiple microphones everywhere, but I feel like with that, it gave it a more realistic feel.
Exactly.
It felt like, because the first time I watched this movie, I was watching on my desktop computer. I don't know where I got the fucking DVD from. I had a DVD, and I was like, you know what? Someone had told me, like, watch it in stereo. And I'm like, well, I don't have like surround sound on my TV, but I do have these nice stereo headphones that I have for my electric piano. So I was like, okay, let me go get these expensive ass headphones, plug them into my desktop computer, and watch the DVD. And you could hear, and I'm like, God, it was, by the way, you gotta do it. Even if you don't like the movie, try to watch, especially the drawing room scenes when they're all together, like in the dining room or the drawing room, whatever. The sounds, it feels like you were in a room of a bunch of people and there are conversations happening all around you. And you feel like you are right there in the moment. And that's one of those little filmmaking tricks that he did that kind of that really impressed me, really.
And I think he was doing it for a long time. Like, a lot of his, if you see an Altman film, you know it's an Altman film. Yeah. And one of the reasons why is the sound. And I think, and another reason is he has the tendency to have a very mobile camera. In this one, he specifically had 2 cameras that never stopped moving. But also sometimes they will track a person down the hall and then zoom off and follow a completely different person, which is a trick that has been borrowed by P.T. Anderson and a few other people over the years. And incidentally, Anderson followed him during Prairie Home Companion. The producers thought he was too sick, and Anderson was there ready to step in. Altman finished the film and died a few months later, but that P.T. Anderson borrows a lot from Robert Altman, and other people do too. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to touch on him, because he's very influential. He's one of those directors that everyone wanted to work with. If you look at the actors he's worked with over the years, it's a pretty phenomenal list. And apparently with this one, he almost had Alan Rickman, and there was a scheduling conflict, and that would have been great. But
I have a question, because
okay.
Dave, viscerally hates this film. Dave, I have to ask you though, is there anything about the film that you did like? Like, is there something that you look at the film and you go, okay, you know what, I may hate it, but fuck, that was good. Like a character.
I did like the period. I love this period.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I hate the period. I did like the set, which the set definitely made you feel like you were in the mansion.
Mm-hmm.
But many of the conversations that were going throughout, especially the rich people, was a lot of mumbling to me. And I'm sorry, but mumbling is not the words I'm looking for. I'm looking for listening to actual conversations that you could follow, that maybe might get you interested in any of these characters. The film focused more on the dialogue that was on the servants than it did the rich people.
I like Minnie.
And I wish that I could have been gotten a little bit more invested in the characters that had come to the hunting lodge. I did love Maggie Smith. She saved the film somewhat for me, especially when she laughed at Ryan Philippe's character. that spillage on his crotch.
Right.
Dude, she is fucking
he was like, you did that on purpose.
I hated it.
She's absolutely in this movie, dude.
I'm
sorry, but Ryan Philippe is still coming off Cruel Intentions kind of rapey in this film.
He kind of did a little.
God, he was a douchebag in everything he's in. Like, I fucking hated his character in this movie. Like, I get it. His character is not a good guy. A lot of people in this film are not good people. But when he gets that coffee in his lap, I was like, yes. Because the servants were like, fuck you. You want to spend 2 days making us look like damn fools. Screw you.
I did appreciate that we got 2 Harry Potter people in here.
A few of them.
I did appreciate that I saw the one guy who got mad at the main guy who died. He was in Pirates of the Caribbean, the 3rd movie, I think. He
Tom Holland?
Tom Hollander, yes. You're talking about Meredith? Yeah.
You talking about the son?
Yeah.
The one who left the room, who I at first thought was the one who killed the guy.
Oh, the short guy?
The short
guy.
The sister-in-law?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got
him. You got the one sister-in-law. You got the one sister-in-law that was in love with him.
Yeah.
Lily Potter. Then, of course, you have Dame Maggie Smith.
Helen Mirren.
Who else? Helen Mirren was not in Harry Potter.
No, she wasn't. But
Stephen Fry, he narrates the British versions of the audiobooks.
Right. Well, they very nearly. Yeah, Michael Gambon, who took over for Dumbledore.
Dumbledore.
Yeah. Wasn't the Inspector Hagrid?
No, the inspector was not in Harry Potter, but he almost was. They almost had Kenneth Branagh in the role, and Stephen Fry was like a last-minute addition. And of course, Branagh was a wonderful part of the Harry Potter series. But
okay, so let me explain for some people out there who might be listening that don't know about the time period if they watch this movie. So like the fact, so you notice some of the rich people, they're all chomping at the bit with Sir William McCordle. Sir William,
Right.
they want his money, but for the most part, people do not respect him. They think that he's crass. They think that he's gauche and all that stuff like that.
Well, he is.
Well, yeah, he is. That fucking dog at the fucking table. Who does that? I'm not rich. I'm not fucking like.
Well, he did that purposefully because he
piss
knew
off
he
people.
was pissing them off.
Particularly his wife. Yeah, he was pissing people off. He knows that. But it's like, okay, so people like to call me bougie. Okay. You don't feed a dog. No, you don't do that. Like, seriously, that's trashy.
See, I'm also.
You're not being proper right now, bitch.
I'm also
I love
remembering
this.
Sir William. I'm also remembering Sir William, who also played Albus Dumbledore, as Von Trassel from Sleepy Hollow, if I remember.
I didn't realize that was Dumbledore.
So I do appreciate him as an actor because
he's definitely an anti-Dumbledore in this film.
He's a dick.
Explain the time period though.
He took over Dumbledore after Richard Harris died.
Right.
Great job.
I mean, I like Richard Harris better, but yeah.
But to explain with the time period, because people who are listening who may not don't know the movie, or even ones who saw the movie and don't know the situation. So like Sir William was new money. Okay, so he earned his money from trade. The people who lived in those types of houses back then, they would have those large staffs with the large estates and stuff like that. They were generally old money, landed gentry. They made their money off the land by charging rent and shit like that.
And we got that in the movie Titanic as well.
Yeah. So by the time we get to 1932,
we
are a good 15 years past the end of World War One. And of course, World War One, after that, you saw the destruction of so many of these very wealthy families of these landed gentry estates. They lost their sons. They would lose their sons in the war, or some of them would make very bad investments in the 20s, which would cause, of course, the Great Depression. So by the time you get to the 30s, people who were still living like this were either the ones who were lucky because they made the right decisions with their finances in their land, or people like Sir William who had a lot of money. If you notice in the movie, they talk about his wife and her father and how he wanted to marry his daughter, one of his daughters, off to some really wealthy guy, because Sir William is paying for his quote unquote father-in-law, who is likely the same age as him, to keep his estate up. He's paying for the aunt-in-law, Aunt Constance, Maggie Smith's character. He's paying for all these different people because he's that damn wealthy. And those people who are from this old money, these old landed gentry, these titles, they're broke as fuck.
Yeah.
He was a war profiteer.
What?
So he was a war profiteer.
Yeah, he was a war profiteer. Yeah. But it's crazy to me that in a place like England, and that, back then it still happens, these titles mean so much to these people. Having Lord, Lady, Duke, Duchess, Count, Viscount, Countess, Baroness, but they're broke. All these people who look down on Sir William, they're all broke as fuck.
And
they're taking his money,
Right. And there's a couple other things that are important about the time period, and also that help lock this film into the time period. Altman straight up said he and Julian Fellows decided, and Bob Balaban, they decided very distinctly and purposefully the film takes place at almost the last possible moment before the British had to pay attention to what was going on in mainland Europe. Yeah. They tried, it's like right on the edge of the
Yeah.
rise of the Reich, and
The Third
it's
Reich, yeah.
yeah. So there's that sort of the last moment of innocence, I guess you could say, was part of this.
Not to bring up another like period film like this, but if you look at Merchant
Mhm.
Ivory with Remains of the
Mhm.
Day, it's similar. You have this like last swan song of this kind of decadence. Like people think that this sort of lifestyle died out in the early 19 teens, like before World War One, but in reality, you get to World War Two, and there were people still fucking living like this.
Right.
You know, not the people who weren't the king and the queen and shit like that, but people who actually were wealthy, still living like this, still able to live in a house with. Actually, like you see all these servants afoot, but in reality, houses that big, estates that big, would have had maybe upwards to 50 to 100 servants. In reality, like I can't even imagine having that many people work for me just to take care of my house.
And George V, it was 32, you said, right?
1932,
Yeah.
George V was still king at that point, but he was towards the.
Yeah, he died after the war.
Yeah.
I
Well,
did sort of.
He died 36. This is George.
Oh
V.
no, I'm thinking the other George.
You think of the other George?
dad.
This is before the.
I'm thinking Elizabeth's dad.
Yeah, this was before we had that.
What about
show
Henry VIII?
before World War II.
Oh yeah, that little temper tantrum of King Edward.
I did sort of smile or chuckle at the moment when Ryan Philippe's character, when he first like came into the servants' quarters, and the way he acted, and then he went out of the room, and the servants were like, how can he? Wasn't he kind of uppity? And she's like, you got to understand, he's American. They do things differently in the Americas.
I like how they covered that character, because if you really pay attention to it, the first time you just see what an asshole he is. But but if you look at this time, you can see the actor in play as he is studying everything from the Get Out.
Yeah.
He is looking, he's trying to learn from everything. He's asking questions, not because he's being rude, which is what they think, but and part of it is because he's an asshole.
Yeah,
but
he's
he's learning. He's studying the whole time.
Yeah, he's going full. It's crazy. Like he's going full method, you know. And there are little Easter eggs that this guy is not using. First of all, his fucking shitty ass accent.
Yeah.
You know, and then there were like little Easter eggs, like the moment where he's trying to rape the lady's maid, and the camera for whatever reason. And the first time I saw this movie, I thought that was weird. I was like, why are they zeroing in on the back of his pants? And then when it was uncovered and he was an actor, I was like,
Fox wardrobe department.
Exactly, his entire fucking costume is from the back lot of a movie studio.
Right. So that's actually sets up the other point I was going to make, but I want to go ahead and actually I never really finished my first impression. I did want to mention that this is probably the fourth time that I've saw the film, and fifth, sixth, and seventh, because the Arrow release has 3 commentary tracks, one with 2 of the British critics who have dealt with Altman and were on set for one or more scenes, one with Altman, his son Stephen, who does the production design, and David Levy, who's one of the producers, and one with Julian Fellows. And so, yeah, I basically watched the movie 4 times over about 4 days, and it's a good. You learn a lot. You learn a lot from that. But one thing that they all did mention is that another thing about the time period with this, there is a real person in the cast. Igor Novello is a actual entertainer from the time. Igor Novello was an entertainer from the time, an actor and musician, and while the producer Weissman and Henry Denton, Ryan Philippe's character, are fictional, the Charlie Chan film that they're making is real. Charlie Chan Goes to London, I think, was like 2 years after this.
Yeah, you talk about
I know.
Oh,
exactly.
Guys are so wrong.
I think that was like Ray Milland's first film or something, which Oh yeah, well, yeah, from humble beginnings, right? But anyway, so they use those two things, Novello's career and actually in a weird bit of serendipity, Novello they wanted Novello before they had really realized this about his career was kind of in a bit of a swan dive at this particular point in time. So it was almost the perfect time to have him kind of trotted out to this country estate to be
Reinvent himself.
exactly.
Don't you love how Maggie Smith actually pointed out the lodger, an actual hitchcock
yes, he did.
which I have
Okay, so
seen.
Are
he
we
did.
talking
Well,
about
he-
the crooner on the piano?
he did. Yeah, he
Yeah.
did. He did a Hitchcock film called The Lodger, which was a big success. And a few years later, when talkies started, he tried to remake it as a talkie, and it bombed. And that was the movie that Maggie Smith was talking about. And it so it was interesting how they did that. And I like how they used those two things to kind of help tie the time and place and give you a little bit of that
Oh yeah, and it
real life. Yeah.
It definitely threw like another, I guess, class element in
Right.
there, and that entertainers.
Right. Oh,
you know,
yeah.
There's that whole line where he's like, you
Oh, yeah.
forget, I make my living pretending to be them or whatever.
Right.
You know,
I did
thought
like
that
his
was pretty
singing.
great.
Oh, he's singing. And that was Jeremy Northam, the actor, was the one singing. And he was
I like his name.
he was playing the piano, although his brother Christopher is a professional pianist, and a lot of the piano playing you hear was actually Christopher. But Jeremy was playing and singing in those scenes. So that's definitely a multi-talent actor there.
I like his name Ivar. That's my grandfather's name.
Right. So honestly, I'm not sure that we really need to do beat by beat of the plot with this one because it really is more of a character piece. But basically, to do a brief rundown, I'll say so we have this 1932 setting where Sir William McCordle is hosting a hunting party. And he brings in a whole bunch of family and, sort of family.
Business
and
relationships.
mostly, yeah. Yeah, you've got as we said, his aunt-in-law, Constance, who's played by Maggie Smith. You've got his sister-in-law, Louisa, who's played by Geraldine Somerville, and her husband, Sir Raymond Stockbridge, who's played by Charles Dance. You've also got their Kristen Scott Thomas is the wife, Sylvia, and their daughter, Isabel, is Camilla Rutherford. You have the Merediths, Anthony and Lavinia Meredith, Tom Hollander and Natasha Whiteman. Ivor Novello, like I said, Jeremy Northam is the guest, and he brings along as his, I guess, plus one, Morris Weissman, who's Bob Balaban, and Henry Dent and Ryan Felipe, who's posing as Balaban's valet. And then you have the Nesbits, Mabel and Freddie, played by Claudie Blakely and James Wilby. And later you see Rupert Standish and Jeremy Blonde. They kind of just come and go. I never fully, I'll even admit, I'm not sure their relationship to the family at this point. I'm guessing Rupert's I think they're like, he's her suitor. That's would-be suitor.
She likes him, and he really wants to be. He wants to be with her. Like he seems like a fortune hunter,
right?
Because he's got the title, but once again, he's one of those broke aristocratic. He's from a broke aristocratic family. He's also a second son, so he inherits nothing. So people think, oh, he's after her for the money, but you realize at the end of the movie, he actually was in love with her.
He does like her. It's more his friend Jeremy Blonde who kind of
crass.
His friend kind of messes things up. He's kind of a terrible wingman.
He's so shitty.
Yeah.
There's a
So all of these people are kind of introduced at the beginning, along with Mary McEachran, who is the lady's maid to Aunt Constance. And when she is kind of, and then you also meet the head butler, who's played by Alan Bates, Jennings. And then he sends Mary around, and they do some kind of weird where instead of entering the house through the front door, they enter through the servants' quarters. And Altman did that intentionally. He wanted to kind of show the I think he called it the engine room, basically. Like
the servants were never allowed to come to the front door.
Right. And
even if you were a guest of a servant. You did not enter through the front door.
Though it is interesting how the two party guests actually came in through the servants' quarters. That was,
because they showed up late and they just
there was always
because there was no one to greet them at the front door. You had to.
Yeah.
Sometimes there was even a servant's entrance.
And actually, I'll be honest, I never noticed this until I was watching the commentary with Julian Fellows today, which is the third commentary, so the most recent viewing. At the very end, when Mary sees off the Stockbridges, including Parks, and then she asks Jennings, "Can I go in?" And like she goes in through the front door, but she had to get permission first, and that was like one little detail I never caught on my own, but Fellows pointed it out, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay."
Yeah.
But that but then you've got the servants. There's this big group there. Parks, like I said, is the Stockbridge servant played by Clive Owen. There are several other visiting servants who take the name of their employers. They call him Stockbridge. They call her Trentham. Below stairs, whatever. You've also got
I thought that was good too.
They don't voluntarily take those names. It's done by It's done to cut down confusion.
Right.
They're not. They don't care when it comes to like the upstairs people, and when it comes to even the downstairs servants of the house in question. They don't give a fuck about what your actual name is. Who are you serving? Who are you here for?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Because to them, they're not people. They're just servants. Right. And I cared more about the servants than I did about the people that employed them. The servants were the more interesting people.
And then, of course, the servants are split between three basic overlords, if you will. You've got the butler, who basically oversees all the. Well, actually, I think I might let Kim do the full explanation of that, because I know you know the details a little better than I do.
I mean, it's very simple. The butler oversees the footmen, the hall boys, and the grooms, and any of the male employees,
the valets,
all that. So they're all under the purview of the butler. So you have the hierarchy of the butler, the valets. First footman, second footman, and so on, and then at the bottom is like hall boy and landscapers and shit like that. Then you have the housekeeper, who is in this case Helen Mirren.
Yeah.
And then under her, you'll have the ladies' maids, because the ladies' maids help the lady of the house or any other women of title in the house. If a woman has a higher title, she has higher precedence. Even amongst the servants, the servant takes on the title or precedence of her employer.
And I think a great moment for that is when the servants are listening to the music, and Helen Mirren's character comes down the stairs, and she says to one of the servants, "What are you doing? Get back to your station." And then the older lady, who is kind of in charge with her, she's like, "Hey, wait a minute, she's under my jurisdiction too."
Yeah.
And I say she listens to the music.
Well, that I was getting to that. Actually, the kitchen, you have the housekeeper, but you also have the cook, the house cook. The house cook then has their own staff, where they have basically their line cooks, their scullery maids, something like that. But it's really funny because you also have in any of these big houses, you will have staff members that double dip between being upstairs staff and also being a kitchen staff, because like the hall boy and scullery maids, you know, they will kind of double dip between the two different staffs. So it's kind of hard, like, okay, who's in charge of me right now?
Well, and the one that Dave was talking about is Dorothy. I think they called her the still room maid or still maid or something. Yeah, and stillery maid, which still apparently falls under both. Yeah. Yeah,
well, she's not quite a housemaid, because even amongst the housemaids, you had it's kind of like a hierarchy. Like you have first footman, second footman, and so on. First housemaid, second housemaid, and so on. Dorothy was below all those housemaids because she's not quite a housemaid, so she's still remaid. But
Dorothy was ride or die, though, for sure.
Yeah, she was ride or die. But she was under both the cook and the housekeeper.
Right.
So like the top three servants in the house are the butler, the housekeeper, and the cook.
And many of the higher ups I've noticed worked for the master of the house in his factory.
Right.
Yeah, both the housekeeper and the cook.
And you notice, which actually makes you wonder exactly, I guess, maybe how he came upon Jennings. I don't know. But you had Helen Mirren as Miss Wilson, the housekeeper, and Eileen Atkins, who's one of the co-creators of Upstairs, Downstairs, from what I understand, is Miss Croft, the cook. And then you've got, you got a number of other. Elsie is an experienced housemaid in the family, in the household. Probert is apparently McCordle's personal valet. And George is one of the footmen. Arthur's one of the footmen, who, of course, Arthur played Spratt on Downton, and I absolutely love him as Spratt. But here he's not quite funny.
Who played Colonel Maris, the guy who played Colonel Maris, valet, he was the butler in the remake of Upstairs, Downstairs.
Okay, yeah, his valet Barnes, he's a bit of a nasty piece of work. And then you got and actually you mentioned Dorothy. She's played by Sophie Thompson, who's Emma Thompson's sister. Would have been kind of cool if Emma Thompson showed up too, but it's neat to see. Also, Fenty Williams is Judi Dench's daughter. She plays one of the low level housemaids. Like I'm guessing probably one of the scullery maids. I don't know, maybe.
So
but what's up?
This movie, as far as the downstairs staff, this movie is very. Not to the upstairs people. Fuck the upstairs people. The movie was seriously, it's relatable because I'm telling you, in a employment situation, a work situation, we all know people like these characters. Let's be real here. We all know the ass kisser. Dorothy is an ass kisser. We all know the guy like Barnes, the guy who's like, fuck this job, fuck my boss, fuck my supervisor. He can kiss my dick. We all know people like Elsie, who she knows where all the bodies are buried. She got all the tips and tricks. She knows all the gossip. We know people like Mrs. Croft, who hates the other person, the other supervisor, and is like, yeah, fuck her, fuck that bitch. We know people like
well, you mentioned I would almost say George is like the Randall of this one. Like he's the one. It's like fuck the customer. And when he did what he did to Denton, he's been waiting for years to do something like that.
I feel like I have worked with archetypes from all these different characters. I have worked with various people like this in my life. In fact, in my career right now, I have an Elsie that I work with. Like she knows where all the fucking bodies are buried. Whenever you want to know the gossip, she got all that shit. And I'll be like, yo, so and so, what's up? And she'd be like, girl, let me go ahead and spill the tea. She knows everything.
So speaking of someone who wouldn't know where bodies were buried if they jumped up and bit them, We've also got Stephen Fry as our illustrious Inspector Thompson. and then Ron Webster as Constable Dexter, who is far and away the more
Far more
They have
capable.
the best scene in the movie is where he's interviewing. I forget who he's interviewing, maybe Maggie Smith,
Yeah.
but the dude's like, "There's someone tracked mud in over here." He's like, "Dude,
Yes.
come on!" And then he points out the glass or the cup,
They
the
have
teacup
someone to
broken,
clean
and
that
he's
up.
like, "They got people do that. Would you just focus on your job?" You know? And there's that pause. I love that shit.
I love that scene because I was like, motherfucker, that's evidence.
I like how
Well, see,
pouring
he
himself
comes
a
in
drink
to give
from
you-
from the alcohol.
Right.
I need
kinda
to say
give
something
you
about
that.
that inspector.
Okay.
I didn't find him funny. I found him stupid. I found him.
You're supposed to.
I mean, he
Yes.
acted like he was Sherlock Holmes, but he was more like Inspector Gadget without the gadgets.
Actually,
He's badass, dude. All his pacing
Actually,
lights
no,
and everything.
I'm going to agree with Kroll on that. He is very much like Inspector Gadget.
But without the
Yeah.
cool
Kroll,
gadgets.
Kroll. If you like Stephen Fry in this, you should watch Google Cambridge Footlights review with Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie, and Emma Thompson, and that British dry humor.
I don't
Just
usually like British dry humor, no.
Or like
fuck,
he
never
he
mind
he
then.
But I
and
do like Emma Thompson.
well he and Laurie, of course. Jews
They're
and
best
Worcester was
friends.
such a great show, and
Hugh Laurie is so far away from House and all the other comedy he's
I
done.
know,
Oh, he would have
I
been
know.
perfect in this,
He
actually.
would have been
He
perfect.
would have been, yes.
The
But
inspector's kind of there to give you a little bit of that hokey murder mystery stuff.
Yeah.
though, you know,
Yeah.
like
He-
that's the service that he's
But he
providing,
wasn't
and I
even-
think it's
to me, he
expected.
wasn't-
That was the Inspector
Like
Perot.
like
But
Inspector
the opposite
Clouseau
of that.
is hilarious.
I
In
will-
Panther movies, you know.
I will admit that, and Kroll and Dave and Tammy may find that this is they may agree with this. That may be part of their the inspector is kind of meant to be a joke. He's kind of meant to be. I almost think, in a sense, he is kind of Altman's joke on the people who really, really, really were hoping for a Perot mystery.
Honestly, his station in life was kind of that of the rich people's thinking.
But he wanted to be.
He
Yeah.
was an ass kisser. He
was a big time.
he was a total ass ball licker.
And
the
he's an
way-
asshat.
I don't even think it's like he's an ass kisser necessarily. You have to understand these people are rich. These
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
entitled.
But he
So here
only thought the rich people were the murderers.
Well-
He said, the staff is fine. We don't even need to talk.
The only
But
people who
I'm
had
not
a
saying
connection to the
everyone
dead
blames
man.
staff.
Yeah.
Well,
And
Yeah, that's harsh.
the staff has more reason to
Right.
kill the fucking prick than anyone else. So
They
I don't know,
You think that because we
Go
as
ahead,
an
Jake,
audience, we feel that way because he's the employer and they're the staff.
exactly.
But as the inspector coming in, and this
Yeah.
first of all, he's already incompetent, period. But you have to again, you have to
Oh, yeah,
understand the
gloriously.
time period. As the inspector coming in, nobody wants to blame a rich person or anyone of note for a murder of a titled man who's rich. And also, no one wants to blame the servants for that either, because interestingly enough, that time period, if you blame the servants, you might as well be accusing their
Yeah.
employer as
That
well.
reflects right back on him.
Right.
Exactly.
And
It's like-
actually,
like-
they mentioned that in the film with Elsie, where I think it's Parks who points out, oh, she'll get a good reference.
Well,
It's
you
because they're
notice-
so desperate to avoid scandal.
yeah, they don't want
Yeah.
to talk about the fact that she was fucking her employer,
Yeah.
or rather that he, either way. And plus, keep in mind that because there were people in the upstairs that were feeling guilty that were looking like suspects, if one of their servants they brought with them did commit the murder, the actual blame would fall more so on them because they would have been the ones commanding their servant to do it. Think about it.
Right.
So no one was. So the thing
That
is,
doesn't
though,
make much sense. to
whenever
me.
you had situations that happen like this in these rich estates, these rich families, and stuff like that, you would have people coming in and they would do a sloppy slap job of trying to figure out, oh, who's the murderer. But people got away with murder all the
Oh
fucking
yeah,
time
all the time.
because they're rich.
I can't remember
O.J. Simpson.
offhand. I think it was Fellows, but one of them in the commentaries made the point that being a detective, a high-ranking detective, apparently, he is probably also used to being big man in the room, as it were. And so now he's surrounded by all these people who are his, quote, betters, and he's partly thrown out of whack because he's used to being the big man in the room, and now he's desperately trying just to be heard. Like that scene where he's trying to introduce himself, he can't do it because
that's some quality British humor right there.
Well, something that I want to talk about that with this movie, we talk about the servants, we talk about the rich people, but we don't really talk about the class conflicts that go on, not just with the rich people, the rest of the servants, but with the upstairs people with each other. Because all these people that are kind of looking at Sir William because they want his money, they want his influence, whatever. Most of it was money.
Everyone is nitpicking at everyone, whether it's upstairs or downstairs.
Killing
Maggie Smith is the expert.
She's
she's murdering fools, dude. Mic dropping left and right. Like it is just some of the best shit ever. She's so pleasantly unpleasant. I love it.
Oh, don't clap your hands, you'll encourage them.
As far as the ones who are the most money hungry, I feel like she's the worst one because she's not trying. You know, her whole thing is that she is living alone. She's being kept in stockings and gin in her nice, fine estate with all her servants. Whereas with the Colonel Meredith, he literally is ruined. Like he's broke. He invested in the wrong fucking thing, and he's screwed without Sir William's investment. And then you have, Freddie Nesbitt because he's broke. He was already broke when he married his wife, not knowing that her family, their fortune's gone. And I'm sorry, I feel so, and I know we're supposed to. I felt so bad for his wife.
Oh yeah.
What was her name again? Mabel. Yeah. I felt so bad for her because she seemed so damn sweet. And so
Freddie
honest.
is an ass. Freddie's an unrepentant ass.
Oh, he's a piece of shit. He abuses her for God's sakes. You know, he's mad at her because she ain't got no money, and not as much as he.
Well, that's because of her. That's because of him, really.
Yeah, he's a money hungry motherfucker. Fuck him all to hell. But because of the time period, once again, you can't really get divorced. And if she did try to divorce him, she would probably be paying him. But it's like I felt so bad for her because she was trying to hold on to a man who clearly does not really want to be with her, but he also is abusive, and she's so wrong for that entire environment. I was like, she's someone who's clearly middle class or lower middle class in their eyes, who's been dropped into this environment.
Right.
Even the servants are looking down on
her. Wasn't she the one that wouldn't take a servant or whatever?
She didn't have a servant.
She
She's
didn't
broke.
She couldn't afford it.
Title, really.
But it was
her father got his money in trade, but the money was all gone.
I think
she
it was
Freddie because of his title. He married
I think
her
it was Stockbridge's servant, wasn't it? Louisa's servant that was the main one, kind of putting her down early on. I think. Downstairs, of course. Upstairs, they all were. Yeah.
Well, downstairs,
doesn't
even
she
the servants
say
were putting her down because they were all putting her down, even down to her damn frock, her dress.
Yeah.
Machine-made lace, and like Mr. Barnes, like, hark at her. And it's like they were making fun of her, even her dress and how she.
I think what was it? What was it at one point that Constance says something like, green, such a difficult color, or something like that.
Hey,
it's savage.
It's so horrible. Like, I feel like the only person who's nice to her.
Well, I think we should have kind of a round table and get everyone's thoughts, because we hear a lot of people, a couple people talking, but a lot of people aren't talking. Like, I haven't said too much, and Mo hasn't even said too much. Tammy said nothing. And,
You do have a good point. I've been trying to get back into setting up the basic plot. But yeah,
Yeah,
based on
mean,
based on what we've done so far, though, I haven't heard from Tammy or Forrest for a while. Do you have any thoughts that you want to throw in from where we're at so far? Okay.
Hello?
well, I tried.
Oh,
Yeah, I have
did
a
you say
few
Dave
thoughts.
or you
No.
trying to get those guys up
Okay.
there?
No, Tammy and
All right.
Forrest.
It's okay.
I guess I don't really have that much to say because I just really didn't get into the movie, so
Same.
Okay. It's all
there
right.
isn't that much to say. I mean,
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I obviously noticed that there's all the different classes and how everybody picked on each other, even in their own classes, and were rude as hell to everybody. The only one that I really did get a kick out of is I liked Maggie. So
Yeah, she's
All
rad.
right.
I think the only people that weren't kind of cocksuckers was the girl, that dude's wife that we were just talking about, the middle class lady or whatever. Her and that singer dude,
and Mitty.
like or the actor dude or whatever.
There were a
Mitty.
few.
Mitty was
there were
really
a few.
fine.
Fine,
Yeah,
Good.
there were definitely different levels of douchery on the upstairs group, but some of them I think were a little more than others, and I kind of felt a little bit for the Merediths. Like the one
Yeah.
guy kept getting picked on and dumped on by everyone. Charles Dance had a chance to get a choice withering line at him when he found out that he was the one that fired the shot that winged McCordle. And he's like,
Oh, yeah.
well, yeah,
Oh,
I
about
guess
being
that
short.
it was something like, I think he said something like
your height would not.
someone of your height would not be able to get a good shot at the birds or something like that.
Yeah, you'd have trouble gauging the height of birds or something like that.
And then he does have that sweet scene later with Dorothy where she tells him about her thoughts about love and whatever. And really, he comes to realize he and Lavinia actually are in love. They're like the only couple that actually are in love, which is a nice contrast to all the other couples.
Yeah, it's like who
Which
cares
couple
about the
which
business
couple are in
or
love?
whatever? He'll figure it out.
The Merediths, yeah.
Which couple was were? I forgot which one. Like, so there's
The little
Yeah.
tiny
that's my
fella that
complaint,
was
is there's
trying
too many
to.
characters. I don't
Yeah.
know who's who. I don't know the actors and actresses, so I can't go by their real
Hey,
names.
okay,
So
I
I don't-
don't know all of
you know.
their names, but as we describe them, it's like, okay, I remember I was
Right.
calling him like blonde guy and older blonde guy and bowl cut girl, and
Well,
like I just made up names for him as I was watching.
The only one I know is Mitty. I like her. I like your
Some of them
character,
I
Mitty.
Right.
And when she
Tessa.
almost gets raped by the actor, that was fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know her and I liked her.
There is a lot of
Most of the-
characters.
Most
that
of the
is
servants I
overwhelming.
liked. Most of the servants I liked to a degree. They were way more interesting than the other people. I could care less about the titled people or the rich people because they're just rich and
They are
titled.
elements of the film, though.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And some of them,
I
I
am
mean,
not a
I
fan.
could find some of it interesting for sure.
right.
But
So
that's
I-
part
so
of, like I said,
basically,
go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, so basically, I just want to throw out like a few. There's a lot of different plot threads, and some of them fade away with
Yes.
very little resolution. Some of them get brought to the fore. Some of them are resolved nicely. Some of them are not. And again, I know that's one of the things that some people find frustrating and difficult about Altman films. It's one of the things that some people find quite refreshing about them. But like there's a lot of different subplots, and you've got the we've mentioned a couple of them, some of the people who have made some bad business decisions. Freddie is obviously not only being just a douche to his wife, but he's trying to blackmail Isabel, who's the daughter of their
Yeah.
host. It's pretty clear that she either has had or is about to have an abortion, and
See,
he's probably involved.
It wasn't that clear to me because a lot of
Yeah, I didn't even know
a lot of it
she
was
was
muffled.
I took
Yeah.
it
The,
out.
uh,
That touches more on what Kim was talking about with the sound
Right.
design of the movie. Like if you had
Yeah.
decent speakers or headphones, because I could hear all of it pretty well,
Yeah.
like the side conversations.
And
I thought
again,
that was
some of
pretty
these things-
fascinating.
some of
couldn't hear
these
shit I
things,
was
They clearly had an affair. Like that was obvious.
Yeah.
Like she was not. I hate to use this goddamn term. She wasn't pure. And even though we had the wild 20s, the freewheeling 20s, for a girl of her station,
It was the
would have
flirty
been
30s, dude.
unseemly.
yeah.
What? Say what?
Everybody was banging in this movie, it seemed
Oh,
like.
But yeah, but
Which
for,
was the
for a
older
young
blonde
lady
chick
of her
that had sex
station,
with the actor?
Right. So again, and actually by the admission of the people who made the film, Robert Altman's own admission, Julian Fellowes' own admission, if you miss certain lines of dialogue, you will miss certain plot lines, and that is one that you could have missed. But you do have some other
there's
more
stuff that I sort of like read past, I guess. Like those two
Right.
dudes you guys were talking about, where the one dude's like in love with that girl, and then like his brown-haired friend is just a dick or whatever. Like I saw that in the
Right.
movie, but I was
And
more
he-
focused
and
on the
his-
I have
other
no idea what
angles.
you're
and
talking
he's
about
pretty. Meanwhile, he's pretty bad. He's
Over here.
spending his time. He's spending his time banging one of the cooks.
Yeah,
You know, and then
just getting
and she's
nasty with it. I love it.
exactly.
Oh,
But then there's
heavy
the
girl?
thing. Then there's the thing
Yeah.
where Elsie is clearly having an affair with McCordle. You got the thing
Is
where
that the old blonde lady?
Elsie is the one Emily Watson plays, the maid.
Someone that takes a
you've-
bath, dude.
Yeah.
The
You've
other
got
one
the
takes a bath, not the main one.
Which one is the old blonde lady that was getting in by the actor?
the old blonde lady is the actual wife of McCordle, Sylvia.
Kristen
and-
Scott Thomas.
Yes, and she did have an affair with Stockbridge. Stockbridge's wife may or may not still be having an affair with McCordle. You got all these little
everyone's
things
sleeping
playing.
on
Okay, so to break it down, Kristen Scott Thomas is married to Mr. McCordle, Sir William
Right.
McCordle, but she was kind of in love with Lord Stockbridge.
Right.
Her sister was in love with Sir William McCordle. He was in
Mhm.
love with her sister. They
Mhm.
cut cards for him. They gambled for him. And unfortunately,
They cut cards.
Wait,
for
video
him.
one.
And actually, that's actually a couple. That's actually a couple of fun little scenes because you have Mary actually gives that information to Elsie, and so something Elsie didn't know. And then just a couple scenes later, you see it confirmed at dinner when she says
You want to play some
Louisa. Well, no, when Louisa says no thanks, I never was very lucky at cards.
Right. That was funny. I did catch that plot line.
Right. So you also have
that's
the
funny.
like I said, you also have the thing where you have the cousin, McCordle's cousin, happens to be a famous singer who comes in to provide entertainment, brings along the producer who's trying to get the Chan movie made, but also doing on-site research. He's got an actor with him who's pretending to be a servant to do research.
His valet.
Yes, pretending to be a valet. What did I say? Did I say actor? Whatever.
Isn't it valet, not valet?
And then you've got all the downstairs stuff. You've got the thing where Miss Wilson hates Miss Croft, and no one really knows why.
Wilson.
What's
They're
that?
not Miss, they're Mrs. Remember.
Oh, right, Mrs. Sorry. You've got McCreechan. Mary McCreechan is a new maid who, yeah.
McKeithen. I can't pronounce it.
McKeithen, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she talks about how she is referred to as Mary because Trentham's not going to
Her name
want
is
that.
Mitty.
Yeah,
Her name is Mitty.
right. And then you got,
She's
like I
spotted.
said, there's the theme of there. You learn about the factories that McCordle had and how they kind of were producing more than just war equipment,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
how
they were producing a lot of
Yeah.
shit.
and certain
Producing
people
a lot
have
of children at that point in time too.
Yeah,
Exactly.
a lot of kids that were getting shipped off to
And you
oil.
also learn-
Okay, so
I also learned
quick.
that Parks grew up in an orphanage. You got all these little bits and tidbits and things that kind of bounce around and bounce off each other and kind of construct the plot overall, which all eventually leads to a murder and a second murder of the same person.
Which is just
Well, can we also talk about, like, honestly,
Okay.
how
Sure.
you have all these characters, and yes,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is a negative of the film. That there's a lot of bloat. There's a lot of people to keep track of.
Way
And-
too many.
And that, I feel like, and I have to agree with Dave and Tammy and other people here, is that if you are not really invested in this kind of storytelling, having this many fucking characters is too much, and it gets boring because you're like, who is this person? Who's that person? I can't fucking keep track. But
that's
one
totally
thing that's
get it.
kind of a constant with this film is that most of these characters are fucking pieces of shit. I'm sorry. Like,
I mean,
the movie,
it's true.
I love the movie. A
Like
lot
I
of these
said,
characters are fucking
Levels
assholes.
of ass.
Sir William.
Yes, indeed.
I'm gonna go ahead and go down the list. Sir William is an asshole. Lady Sylvia is an asshole. Who's Maggie Smith's character? What's her name? I'm
Constance.
She's a
Grantham.
royal
Like
bitch,
Grantham.
but she's fun as hell.
But Maggie Smith, she's an asshole. The butler is a drunk asshole. Mrs. Croft is an asshole. The list fucking Henry Denton, asshole.
I'd say the butler is more. He's a drunk. I'm not sure he's
and
an
a pacifist,
ass.
but he also is considered
Yeah.
an asshole because it's uncovered. His secret is that he's a pacifist who was a what is it? He was a conscientious objector
Conscientious
Right.
during
objector,
World War
yeah.
One. So he's
Right.
considered a coward for that reason. I feel like the ones who are not assholes or horrible people are Mary,
Yes.
Mabel,
Yes.
and Ivor. Ivor, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
I
kind of
loved
that
him.
objective person.
Yeah.
It's just like he's just
smooth
there.
as fuck.
He's just like he's part of
Yeah.
the set dressing, you know.
Yeah,
And
singing
he
his
was the only
songs,
person who's
tickling those
truly
ivories.
kind. He was the only person who's truly kind to Mabel. Like that was probably the highlight of her year, of her life, that she got to sit
Right.
next to Ivor Novello while he serenaded her on the piano. Like what the
Right.
fuck? Like,
I
mean,
need to say one thing. His name's
Huh?
Ivor.
Yeah.
yeah, I said Ivor.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that because it's my grandfather's name. So
I would
Ivor.
also.
Yeah, well, yeah, I
Okay.
know. I said Ivor.
yeah, you said Ivor. It's Ivor.
I would say there's also a few people who could be seen as fairly neutral. Some of them, like Dorothy and Arthur and Lavinia, they're not really asshole-ish. They're just kind of,
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not good. They're not
Yeah.
bad. They're
Meredith,
just pretty
I think
people,
Lady
you know?
Meredith, she's pretty sweet.
Or not
Yeah.
Dorothy, but you know what I mean.
Because she's, she was her husband, she was her man,
right.
but she's there as a calming influence. At one point, she even tells her Aunt Constance, like, "Hey, be kind." I feel like
Right.
that's the sister. If you want to compare this to Downton Abbey, she
Uh-huh.
is the what's the sister that died?
I don't.
Was
Yeah,
it
she's
Sylvia?
that sister. No,
Yeah.
Sybil.
Sybil,
She's
yes,
she's
you're
the-
right.
She's the Sybil of the three sisters. She's the sweet one, the nice one,
Right.
who's telling the aunt to stop being mean. She's dressed perfectly fine. She's the one telling her husband, "Hey, calm down. We'll be okay." And he's just like,
Mhm.
"We're ruined." And she's like, "Hey, calm down." She's the
Right.
one who's nice. And then of course when she sees William dead, what does she do? She faints because this is a woman who's probably
Mhm.
never seen anything difficult in her life.
Right.
Actually, there is one other thing that most of them have in common.
Yeah.
And that is
I
a
actually-
motive to kill the guy that got killed.
Yes.
I actually
that-
thought she was the killer because she fainted,
Yeah.
like she was trying to put on.
No.
I
The,
thought she did it.
I thought she painted on purpose to cover the real murder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought she fainted.
You know
on
what?
purpose,
I
too.
just thought about something that I don't know why this shit has never occurred to me in the last 12 years since I first saw this movie. So like primogeniture and everything like that with these title landed gentry families where they
Right.
pass it on to the oldest son.
Yeah.
I just realized why the father of those three sisters were so keen to marry them off to rich men.
Yeah.
Did he have a son? They never mention that they have a brother in that family.
Right.
They never mention that shit. He's titled. Their father is titled and formerly rich, but he's broke. And the fact that his estate is being kept afloat by Sir William, they never mention a brother. It's just the three sisters. Holy shit, that never occurred to me till just now.
Well, and that,
There you
that
go.
speaks to the.
And then, of course, Sir William, because he's not an aristocrat, he was knighted by the king, but it's not a title that really passes down because he's a self-made man of new money. His money does not fit under primogeniture, which means it goes to his wife and then later his daughter.
Right.
Hence the reason why the fortune hunter men are like, we want to marry Isabel.
Right. You're saying something?
Well, it's just that, that highlights kind of what could also be looked at as the positive element of the large cast and, the rewatchability of it if you are engaged by it. She's seen this movie how many times and she's still noticing new things about relationships in the film. And even just this first time through, it's like, oh shit, I enjoy the idea of the mental exercise of like learning how all these characters connect in future.
I'm gonna give you a funny story right quick. The reason why it just occurred to me is because I'm dealing with some bullshit with my own family where my oldest brother thinks that he's gonna inherit everything when our mom dies. And I'm like, why? He's like, because I'm the oldest. I'm like, bitch, please. We're not in England. What the fuck? We're not like landed gentry.
It should be split evenly between the children.
My mom, I wrote my mother's fucking will for her. Okay, I wrote it for her, and he's like, I should inherit everything because I'm the oldest. And I'm like, dude, and it's the funny thing. I said, bitch, you've been watching too much Downton Abbey because he loves Downton Abbey. And he's been watching a lot of Downton Abbey. I'm like, you've been watching way too much fucking Downton Abbey. This ain't Downton Abbey, motherfucker. You ain't getting shit but what the will tells you to get. We are in America, nigga.
So the I mentioned or one thing I'm just going to mention since on my mind. You mentioned Downton. Mabel reminded me a little bit of Edith. I don't know, not perfectly, but a little bit, just in some ways. So anyway.
Edith's not trashy. Edith is still very upper class. Mabel is not, and Mabel.
I wouldn't call her trashy. She's not trashy, upper class.
Like, in their eyes.
Because she actually they mentioned this, that the fact that she is so thrilled that Ivor's there, and they definitely are looking down their noses at her. That's the partly because of Ivor. Oh yes,
Ivor. Not Ivor.
I guess it depends on where you're coming from dialect-wise too, because different dialects would pronounce it different ways in different.
Right, I understand that, but he's obviously like my grandfather was. That's what the comes from.
Okay,
so what's up?
Let me say this. Okay, so if you notice with the film, with the upstairs people, and even with the downstairs people, there are little landmines as far as etiquette and precedents and stuff like that. That's something that
lost me.
I hate to even fucking admit this, but growing up, my mother, she wanted the little lady. So I was in etiquette classes. I did pageants.
Cotillion, isn't that a thing girls
like that do? Yes. Oh my god, fucking yes, debutante shit like that. I did all that shit.
My sister did a lot of that.
Did she ever take you to beauty pageants?
Say what?
Did she ever try to take you to beauty pageants?
I was a pageant girl, yes.
My sister won some trophies.
I was a pageant girl. The highest I got was, I think, junior miss, before the Miss Teen Virginia and shit like that. So either way, what I'm saying is that growing up, learning stuff in etiquette classes and learning about well, this is how you do at dinner. This is how you do if you're a guest at someone's house. You bring this, Learning all that shit, I realized these are landmines because if you don't grow up in this environment, if you don't grow up in this society, how are you supposed to know this shit? So you look at Mabel.
I don't know.
Mabel has very new money, and at one point she says, "What a lovely dress," and apparently in that society that's rude.
Right.
That's rude. And then, of course, another example is Morris Weissman when he
Oh, yeah.
told Sylvia, and I'm expecting some call, and of course I'll reverse the charges. And she's like, yeah, and she's clearly offended because by him saying that, even though in his American mind,
Yeah.
he's being polite,
See,
and
I
he's
can't
letting her
afford
know,
that.
like he's letting her know,
Right.
like I don't want to be rude and be imposing, but to her, he's saying you can't afford this, so I'm
Yeah.
going to reverse the charge, and I will take on the burden of that.
Really?
And actually,
I didn't get
that.
Curl, what?
You didn't see
Yeah,
the
really.
the stink eye she gave him?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
probably-
no, I
yeah,
didn't notice that.
That's
Like I
considered
said,
rude.
I'm when it
But-
comes to the titles and the
Right.
etiquettes and stuff, I'm completely lost.
Well,
I had no
actually,
fucking clue.
I do
really
want
didn't
I
care
do want to
that
make
much, you know.
okay. I do want to make sure that we mention that that the that's a good lead in actually to one particular group of characters that are, or rather two groups of characters to mention. One thing with Weissman, Novello, and Denton being the one group of characters is that they are odd. They are the outsiders. They are the
Yeah.
interlopers. Two of them are American, although one is pretending to be Scottish. You know, they're definitely.
Minnie called him out. I knew
Right.
he wasn't Scottish. Yeah.
Well, basically, the idea is that, again, Weissman and Denton are there doing research. They're trying to learn about everything. And so, and then on the other hand, you also have Mary, who's new to service. And so,
Minnie.
Sure. Mary. So Mary and Denton are, in a very real sense, and Altman uses this term, they're sort of the tour guides in the film. They are intentionally positioned in a way to where they have to keep asking questions, and that allows the film to give exposition without exposition dumps.
Yes.
So it's kind of a brilliant way of doing it, I think.
Is. And dude,
and-
when they do the
I
thing
did like
later
that.
on,
Yeah.
where like once Weissman feels like
Yeah.
he's heard enough, he's having that phone conversation, basically narrating what could possibly happen in the rest of the
Right.
actual movie that we're watching while it's going on. I thought that was fucking brilliant.
Yeah, that was kind of
Right.
funny.
That was kind of because
The
they had
butler
set
did it.
that up by that point. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, of course, you also have the constable with maybe the butler did it, which that is obviously
Okay, so Colin
something.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But,
right.
And of course, one of the running gags of the film is that they keep showing the poison all over the house.
Yes.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
everybody has the poison. Like I
Yes.
noticed that myself. I'm like, why the
I
fuck?
love
are
how
these
as
people-
he's explaining it, he finds another bottle of poison.
Yeah.
I guess
yeah,
it's good for
exactly.
shoes. It's good for shoes. Like I don't know why, but poison's good for shoes.
Right. So this film, there's I've taken writing classes, and there's a sort of an adage of something like you don't introduce a gun if you're not going to use it. And so this one introduces so much poison.
And so much guns too.
And guns, and they make a point of noting that a knife is missing. So
Yeah, oh yeah, I thought he was,
Yeah.
I knew he was gonna get stabbed. I didn't know, but I didn't think about the poison. Like when he got stabbed, that scene where he gets stabbed,
Mhm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
it kind of looked weird, like because he was already dead. And that's now I found
Right.
out later. I'm like, oh, it's because he's already dead. That's why it didn't seem like when it went in, it didn't seem like it
Right.
went into a live body, And now I know because I thought he was sleeping.
Right.
Right.
And
It was
he
subtle, but yeah,
he was
that
already
you
dead.
could sort of tell when the stabbing happened that it was like that wasn't quite right.
Yeah, it
that was a
didn't
weird
seem
way
quite
to
right.
do
Like,
that
I didn't
effect,
know
he
and
was
then
dead
it turns out there's
at
no
that
blood.
point. But I knew he was, because I had read
Right.
that he gets twice murdered, but then it took so long for the murder to happen.
And for
I
that
forgot.
brief moment, if you're
Mhm.
following all of it, you think
Mhm.
it might have been 3 times for a minute because he gets winged by that fucking bullet when they're
Oh
birding.
yeah.
And so
Right.
once you find out that he got killed twice, you're like, holy shit, how many of these people are gunning for this dude?
Yeah, so
Or was
No
it just
funny.
one
Everybody,
person 3 times?
everyone's gunning
Yeah.
for him.
Right.
It's it's like that JR thing with Dynasty, like I was saying earlier. It's
Well,
just like,
well,
it's, it's like who
again,
did
it comes again, it comes back to the the thing where Altman said it's not so much a whodunit as a who cares whodunit, and the basic idea being that
I get that, but I still
really
care. I want to
the
know.
movie. But the idea being that the movie is more about these people and their situation than it is about the murder itself.
I get that, but that's one of the things I want to bring up is that I was really mad about. I could not figure out who the fuck poisoned him, and if it was said, I missed it, and I actually had I asked Dave, and of course he checked with Jamie, and neither one of them knew. Like they were coming up with things. And I'm like, no, it couldn't have been them, and we're trying to figure it out.
We haven't really gotten to that point in the plot.
I looked it up online, and I had to look up online to figure out who the fuck did it because I couldn't figure it out, and I wanted to know. And it does explain who did it and why they did it, and it makes sense. Well, I couldn't figure that out myself, which made me mad because I'm usually figure out this stuff myself. And
unfortunately, I had no interest in figuring out who. By that time,
I was at least interested enough to want to know.
I've lost
we'll talk about
entirely.
it when we get there.
If you notice, if you notice when he takes the drink, it's the liquor that was poisoned. And if you notice when he takes the drink, and I noticed this time, you can see his reaction.
He winces. He does wince.
I did notice that.
Not like the regular.
He's like,
I did notice that.
But you know what? The first time I saw that, I was like, damn, that shit is strong. And then of course my historian brain kicked in. I was like, well, the liquor back then was stronger, Kim.
Yeah. Well, that's my first thought.
My thought was he's so rich that he doesn't even like that brand of drink. Like it was below him. That's what I was thinking. He was
maybe
it wasn't good enough, and that's why he winced. So I definitely noticed winch.
Someone like that would only have the finest liquors, and I was like, he probably winced because he took a big drink. He took a big gulp and was like, he wasn't like prepared for it.
Because
I would wonder about that because people who drink a lot do have their favorites, and if he pulled himself up from nothing, he might have had a favorite that was not like top shelf.
And also, they water it down with the fucking like seltzer water too.
Yeah, I mean, he probably, like I said, to us, the first time watching it, it's meant to be something that passes you by and you don't think twice about it.
No, I definitely thought about it.
Coming back, when you see that reaction coming back, you're like, no, this dude was probably drinking this stuff regularly. He wouldn't have reacted like that to his regular shit.
Well, he even looked at the glass like, what the fuck?
Okay, well, and actually, just completely random trivia here, but just to throw something weird out, Michael Gambon in that scene, or McCordle in that scene, is cleaning his gun. Apparently, Gambon is a gun aficionado, and he knows how to do that stuff backwards and forwards. So that was actually him just bringing one of his own hobbies in. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to learn about. And that's one of the But apparently that's one of the things that Altman did a lot. He would encourage his cast to bring things to the table. And Parks, Clive Owen's character, is very quiet. He's very taciturn. He doesn't speak until he is spoken to. And then he answers directly and doesn't hold back, but he answers directly. But that was supposedly his idea. He read the character as scripted and said, I think I should hold back. I don't think I should talk until I'm addressed. And Altman's
Jacob, that's the great thing about him, about his character, is that I love how polite his character is. That's why his character is such a red.
It's always the quiet ones.
It's always the quiet ones.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying about you. Whenever you flip at me, whenever you flip out, I'm like, it's always the fucking quiet ones, right?
Oh, the one that stabbed him, and you guys are talking about?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I say about Brandon right here.
One of Tammy's favorite.
The handful of times that Brandon has gone off, especially at me, I was like, it's always the fucking quiet one.
Right.
But like with Clive Owen's character, with him, he is like a very good servant in the sense that he speaks only when spoken to. He is very polite. He's very nice to everyone. He is above board. He obviously hates Henry Denton, and especially with the whole thing with Mary, because he knew in that scene when Henry basically almost rapes Mary, he knew what was going on. And he looks at him like, what the fuck,
Right.
dude? Like,
Yeah.
seriously, dude? Like,
They do that monologue about the perfect servant.
oh yeah, Helen Mirren.
Oh, yeah.
And she talks about at the end when
Yeah.
she tells Mary, I'm the perfect servant.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, you know, after I kind of fell in
Yeah,
love
no
with
life.
this whole time period, I did research, and particularly research about the servants. They were meant to be invisible. Okay, they were meant to be background, you know,
I knew that.
not seen,
Right.
addressed only when they are talked to by their masters. They were not to go to their masters and talk to them unless you were the butler or the housekeeper or the valet or lady's maid.
Yeah,
You
someone
always
in a
speak when
station to be
spoken to.
addressed.
And even there, within limited, like they point out several times in the commentary, and you definitely see this in this, and I think I would say you would also see this a lot in Downton. The characters are sometimes very free at speaking with their lords and ladies when they're alone,
Yeah.
but as soon as someone else enters the room, the conversation shifts to
Which makes
Well,
sense.
yeah.
I mean, it's like when you're alone,
Yeah.
it's like, bitch, I've been raising you since you were 10 or something. You know?
Right.
But when you're around other people, you got to keep up those respectful
Yeah,
appearances
exactly.
or whatever.
Well, that
Right.
PBS documentary that I mentioned before called Manor House, there comes a point midway through the documentary where the family and the downstairs staff was struggling, obviously, because these are modern day 2000s era people who with modern jobs, and all of a sudden they're servants and they're having to work 16-hour days and shit. So they were all struggling. But there's a point where it came where the upstairs people, the family, were also struggling. And at one point, the wife of the upstairs family, she's struggling, and she even says at one point, my husband and I, if we were living this lifestyle like for real, you know, he would probably take a mistress, and his greatest friend and confidant would be his valet. My only friend and confidant would be my goddamn lady's maid, you know? So if you were part of the upstairs staff, you were the most important to the family because you were the ones they spoke to and they confided in, because you, as the quote unquote perfect servant, you held their secrets.
Yeah.
And actually, I think one of the I would almost call it a kind of a missed opportunity in the film, especially because I watched some of the deleted scenes and there were more scenes with Derek Jacobi.
Yeah.
But his character, Probert, is clearly very devoted to McCordle.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
very, very devoted. He's a very good servant to him. And I think he gave one of the best performances in the film, but there's just so little of it. And it's just, yeah, it was a shame.
The actor. I really love the actor because, like Anna, she made me watch I, Claudius because she's in love with that fucking miniseries. But
right.
I have I, Claudius. It was a very slow.
Say what, Derek? Dave.
Said Claudius was slow.
Yeah, like Anna loves.
It was
Anna
very
loves I,
slow.
Claudius. Yeah. Well, Dave, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one because I was like, why is she? She enticed me over to her house, got me liquored up, and was like, we're gonna watch it. Like, yeah, we're gonna watch something. And then she puts on I, Claudius. And I was like, bitch, you said we were gonna watch. I thought we were gonna watch Pride and Prejudice. You know, it's
Damn, you guys got a weird idea of party movies. I'm talking like Big Trouble in Little China or Rocky.
No, that was a priest.
Well, still, priests were known for boxing back in the day.
Yeah, you got to remember the other priest we all know.
Shit, Jacob. Either way. I feel like with him, they did waste him because Mr. Probert, like, he seems like devoted. Who was Lady Sylvia's Lewis?
Right.
She was kind of wasted too because like you have these like throwaway comments of like, oh, if Lewis's mother was to die right now, she would find it less important than one of Lady Sylvia's farts, you know? That sounds really shitty, like a description, but if you look
No,
at that time period, like, yes, these people were that
Sure.
devoted to their employers,
Right.
not because they liked them necessarily, even though they spent so
Right.
much time with them, but they felt important in their jobs. They got paid the most of any of those other servants, and they got the most perks.
Yeah, I think honestly a large majority of all the classism and etiquette and stuff like that back in those days was just so that a select group of people could pretend that they didn't fart. You know, so
Right.
at the end of the day,
That's about it. Yeah.
Oh my god, no.
So anyway,
do you think any of the characters
so
in the upstairs of this movie have farted like openly in their lives?
Not very often, that's for sure. So we basically have you've got a couple of dinner scenes. You got a couple of scenes in the drawing room with the piano and the bridge and all that kind of stuff. You've got the shooting party scene, and then the the murder and
Poor
the
ducks.
aftermath, which includes, of course, the breakfast scene. Which again, there we get to see Weissman's lack of British etiquette, where he gets told off for not serving himself. Which I will admit, if he was coming over and knew nothing about British class structure and whatever, it might be kind of weird to have all these fully choreographed meals and then a do-it-yourself buffet for breakfast.
Totally.
Yeah, I love
It
that.
is
I
kind
didn't
of-
understand that
Like,
at all. Made
Yeah.
no
The first
sense.
time I saw this, I was like, wait a minute. They were served at tea time, and they were
Yeah.
served at dinner, and they're
Yeah.
served for midnight snacks. But you're
Yeah.
telling me it's a fucking buffet for breakfast? Like, really, bitch?
Yeah, it made no
Right.
fucking
Except
sense
for
to
the
me.
married women. The married
Yeah,
women
just
get,
a
or
Continental
the
breakfast
older
up there.
widows,
You know what I mean?
they're
Right.
served in bed.
It's a pot of
Right.
coffee over there.
But it is
No
interesting how much. It
I
is
imagine
interesting how
it's
much
some
dressing
way
down.
for those, like, again, for those non-farters to pretend like they still harvest their own first meal of the day or something.
Look at the
Sure,
hard
buddy.
work I'm
Sure you
doing. I'm
do.
making my own
These are
Have some more
farting
eggs
bed,
Benedict.
right?
Actually, I was talking with someone
You
about it.
they
And I
ring a
think,
little bell when someone comes in and turns down the fucking bed dressing so that they can fart without soiling their linens or something.
They open the window for them so they don't have to smell their own fart.
Yeah, flatulence.
I seem
my
to have
God.
soiled the linens.
I think I felt myself.
So,
Oh, you're terrible. Oh, you're terrible.
so anyway,
That's why I
a
miss
couple of notable things I do want to mention throughout. We do have. We've talked about a lot of the various plot threads, the why people are after McCordle and his money and whatever, and a little bit of the snootiness towards the entertainment industry. And one reason why Mabel fits like a square peg, because she actually enjoys novellas playing openly, whereas you got Constance with all her snide comments. And they're
She's
sitting there playing
roasting that
bridge.
dude.
Yeah, they're sitting there playing bridge, and she's like, "No,
Don't clap,
no,
don't encourage him.
Don't, don't encourage him. Yes.
Don't
It's really
encourage
a bit
me.
more
I
than
love that
background
one.
music, isn't it?
I love
Right.
the
So
other scene where
classic.
they're with the director. They're asking about the
Yeah.
film, and then
Oh
they-
yeah, one of
and
the
then he
great
goes, "Oh, no one here. We're gonna watch it anyways."
right.
I was like,
the,
"Wow, that's rough."
the part where they get him to talk about his film because
Yeah.
they're trying, like, everyone's mad at each other and they desperately need normalcy, so they decide to pick on the weird American, and so
Right.
they get him to talk about his film, and then he's like, "Oh well, it's a murder mystery in a manner like this." I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give it away. And then Trentham just from down the table is just like, "Oh, but nobody here will see it."
That was so fucking
Just
right.
love,
That
I
was so
just
snooty.
love that.
that was
Yeah,
fucked.
it's amazing.
And I think,
What kills
and
me
they
about
said in the commentary, Altman and his son, they were doing like, "Yeah, this is everyone's favorite line."
Dude, she's still alive, right? Like somebody needs to petition her to just make like a roast channel where she roasts people's TikToks or something.
Yeah, her first season of Downton Abbey,
Yeah.
just gold, fucking gold. What is a weekend, you know?
She deserved that.
She deserved that fucking Emmy and Golden Globe. But honestly, like these type of people, like, it's crazy to me. Like people like Lady Trentham and like the Merediths, or even Lady Sylvia, who's married to to Sir McCordle. They look down on people who are new money. They look down on people like Mabel, whose father was new money. But it's like, because you have titles, so those titles are so fucking important. You think that you're important, but you all are broke as fuck. Like you are basically one bad.
I'd rather be rich and unimportant than important and broke.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Like, but it's so funny that you had these families during that time period, and even in the late 1800s, they made money in trade, which was considered very low class, even if you're rich. You know, it was the landed gentry with those fucking titles that the Europeans they craved so much. It's like you would have all this money, and then you have these landed gentry people who are like, "Oh, you're the new money." Like, bitch, you're broke.
Right.
I can go here. I can buy a brand new ass fucking house. I can do this. I can do that. And you know, you broke. You're about to go bankrupt. Like if
about your family's house.
Well, that's what happened in the late 1800s. You had these rich American heiresses marrying into British aristocracy.
Right.
In the 1900s, you had that one of the Kennedy daughters. She married into British aristocracy to keep their fucking land afloat in that fucking family. You know, because they were landed gentry, they had the title, but they were broke. And that's how so many families.
A lot of teeth on those Kennedys. You know, you got to be careful.
Bless you too. But like to me, like that is the height of bullshit. Like the height of snobbery. Like, how can you look down your nose at someone who earned their money? They earned it through trade, and they're fucking rich. They're richer than God. You're broke, and you're relying on this other person just because you have a title.
Well,
fuck you. You're broke.
one could say it's the same these days, that a lot of times people look at people who are born wealthy as great, and then they look at people who are upper middle class who work hard as low. Even today, even in the United States, that seems to be a culture.
It's weirdly still
blue blood aristocracy.
True.
Well, I mean, that's because those people who think that way, they are modeling themselves after the British aristocratic system. But those of us here in the South, or other parts of America, like out west, we have that pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality of, we made this money, we are of this class now, fuck y'all. It's like the Jeffersons. We're moving on up.
Moving on up.
The deluxe apartment in the sky.
Well, it's actually it's appropriate. Like as we said, we've got the film here directed or written by Julian Fellows. One of the things that put him on the map, really, and of course he went on to great fame and fortune with Downton. But he's also written some books, and it's appropriate. The only one I've read so far is called Snobs. And it's a fun little book. But it's actually a little bit more modern, but it's still about the same basic struggle to not let go of the past. And so anyway, we've got the a couple of important through lines that we haven't really necessarily touched on too much yet. One is, as we mentioned, McCordle had these factories where a lot of girls found themselves in an unfortunate situation. And
he only employed girls, it seems like. He only employed young women.
Yeah, apparently, yes.
Well,
And
he wanted to bang them.
There are several hints scattered throughout that eventually come together But one is that you do learn early on that Parks grew up in an orphanage. He believes his mother is dead, but he doesn't really say much else beyond that. You also see that Miss Croft has or Mrs. Croft has a picture that when the detective picks it up, oh, what a bonny lad! What's he up to? He's dead. Just like, yeah, and then but you also hear you see all these little hints that Mrs. Wilson sees something in Parks. She's weirdly attentive to him. There is that backstory of her and Mrs. Croft not getting along. There's all these little hints that eventually come out to be one of the major plot threads that is kind of near the heart of the film, because it's why the murder took place in the first place, which is that you come to find out eventually that Parks was a product of that system.
I mean, they set you up with like 4, I think it is, like main people that you're pretty sure had something.
There's several red herrings. Yes, they kind of set up. They
like
set up
dude
Freddie,
whose business was blown off or whatever.
Freddie Nesbitt. You got Meredith. You've got George is kind of set up as a red herring.
And they make sure that they're absent just at the time of the murder. That
George, that servant that he's like, I'm in it for the money. I don't give a fuck. I'm just
exactly.
Like,
George, see, a couple of them are easily eliminated, but some of them aren't. You know, and but they all but spell it right out for you with the dude and Helen Mirren or whatever being his mom and all that stuff. Like it is there. I caught that the first time through.
It's not like overwhelming though. Like I caught it the first time through, but it was like I don't think I necessarily caught onto it before it was revealed. I can't remember for sure. But like
I figure, like when she cries or whatever, almost cries when she sees like the photo on his desk, or it's like she's not just gonna be like, that busted up that this dude grew up in an orphanage. She's harder than that. These are all
there's something.
Like,
there's something there.
Yeah. Exactly, and so that stuff with them felt fairly obvious when the reveal happened to me. I don't know. I'm not trying to act like smart or anything, but I did get that far with it, where it was like,
a lot of the
okay, it makes sense that.
And if you're not paying attention, like let's say you're dozing off by this time, like
that's what I was going to get at.
You're going to miss it because of that. But
I think the movie could very easily lull you into a state where you would miss enough stuff that it wouldn't be obvious.
And also, I guess we should probably mention one thing I don't think we have mentioned in too great a detail. I think we mentioned that Elsie's having an affair with McCordle.
Oh, obviously.
But she has an interesting moment in that last dinner where Sylvia has had enough and just starts dressing him down, and he's sitting there seething in anger. And then Elsie steps in. Now, Miss, that's not fair. And like as soon as she says
calls her
that,
by her first name and like a sort of a nicknamey kind of way.
Yeah,
Bobby or something.
Bill. She calls him Bill. Like,
she called him.
No, that's not fair, Billy. Something like that.
Or something along those lines. But whatever the case, the fact that she spoke at that moment was rough enough.
It was hard, and then using a pet name, which would be considered then.
And I think it was Julian Fellows that said in the commentary that he wondered if that would be enough for people to know, to get it. And then he said it was a sense of relief for him to watch audiences where as soon as she opens her mouth, they all gasp. And he's like, oh, they get it. They know.
Yeah.
Because as soon as she opens her mouth, she's done.
She's already speaking out of turn. And then like the added pet name on top of it. Like I said,
I totally did not get it at all. I got it afterwards. Oh, okay. I guess it was too powerful for her to do that. But at the moment, I'm like, what's the big deal? Like, I didn't get it at all. But like I said, I don't know shit about the the etiquettes and stuff. So to me,
Yeah.
it was just like,
I mean,
what
shoot.
what'd she do wrong?
When he goes in there and approaches her in the hallway and basically fondles her chest like right
Yeah.
up.
Ah, so
Oh yeah,
gross.
yeah.
There's something-
There's something on there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Whoops.
sir. Thank you, sir. Well, the thing is, though, one thing that I loved about Elsie is that it's the duality of her character, is that she's so smart. Again, she knows where all the buys are buried. She knows the
Yeah.
house inside and out. She does her job well. But
Yeah.
on top of that, she's stupid enough to still be one of William's girls, where she falls for his lines. Like, dude,
Yep.
he's not handsome. He's old. He's fat. He's
Well,
a
she says
Forrest.
that though. She does fully like explain it, where she's like, "I don't really love him, but I just like the way he talks to me."
There's an
Right.
there's an affection
Yeah,
She's
but
between
he's
the
aware
playing-
that that's
he's
what's
giving
going
her a
on.
line. He's playing an act. He's acting.
But sometimes that's better than nothing. And
Yeah.
also, I think she does get slightly preferential treatment, and that could be part of it. And it's clear that she's willing to use herself in that way to get ahead. Like they asked Elizabeth, or they asked, Emily Watson, afterwards. They asked her, like, so do you think what do you think happened to her after she drove off with Weissman? And she's like, she said basically that, oh yeah, she definitely made it to Hollywood on her back. It's probably true. I think there's a good chance that she's, in a sense, she's kind of a counterpart to Denton in that way. And of course, she puts him in his place, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, that was the highlight of the film for sure. Her slamming the
right.
door in his face.
Right, where she makes him wait while she's going to use.
Yeah, that's so fucking savage.
But anyways,
at the end with the sisters,
yeah,
because that's really where it comes, where you find out one of the
Yeah.
sisters had been the one that poisoned him beforehand,
right.
and
Again, I did not know that. I did not figure that out. So
just
you get a
because
couple
they hate
of-
each other, but they finally, though she lost her ability to really even have contact with her son ever again.
Yeah, it's true.
She managed to regain a relationship with her sister that had
Right.
long been soured.
And they make a point. They make a point of that.
Heart wrenching,
Well,
where
they
she's like,
explain,
"Don't
like,
cry, they'll
why
hear
they
you,"
hate
and then
each
she
other
just
because-
like silent sobs into her fucking neck, like that.
Yeah,
Choke.
they make a point of that in the commentaries that it's subtle and it's hard to see it unless you're looking for it. But Croft and Wilson, they pass each other in the hall. There was that scene on the stairwell, but they're never in the same room together.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that
then also, like when Robert Parks, when he first gets there, he's like, Robert Parks. They both recognize that name. They both
Right.
stop.
Yeah,
Right.
there's little hints, but I mean,
Yeah.
they do fully explain it.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
they do.
she-
But-
the main
but-
girl
but-
goes and talks.
but the
to both
main
of them, and they admit it.
the main reveal, the reason I thought to back up at that point was that Mary is having a conversation with Elsie, and Elsie says something. I'm still not 100% sure exactly what she says, but she says something that lights a fire under Mary, and she's like, I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to
I
know what's
forget
going
what
on.
She says too, but
It's-
yeah, that part, and she
Yeah.
just storms
that's
out
when
without
she goes see
Yeah.
and-
goes sees the
Yeah.
son.
She
find
goes
out-
to see Parks, yeah.
finds
And he
out
in
that
his
he's the son
No,
of the.
it's not.
of
It
the
wasn't
guy.
Elsie. It wasn't Elsie. It was when
Yeah.
No, Elsie
Yeah, Minnie.
says it to her, and then it
Yeah.
fires her
Yeah,
up,
then
and she
Mitty
storms
goes.
out.
Mitty goes to him.
Yeah. And she has she's like, you why would you barely knew him, why would you do if you'd have to really hate him. Yeah, his son can't hate his father. Yeah.
Am I muted?
No.
It's
What?
when she was
Sorry.
like, she was with Lady Trentham and the rest when Lady Trentham's like, oh, the name was Parks or something like that, and that's when she
No,
realizes holy
that's
shit.
what triggered her going to go see Mrs. Wilson.
Yeah,
She went to see Parks after talking to Elsie, and so she puts one piece of the puzzle, or one big piece together. She realizes that
He's a better
he
detective than the
had
inspector.
tried. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Now, granted, if the constable had been able to run the case, it may have gone differently.
Oh yeah,
But-
he was doing his job.
But it she turns into a nice little sleuth there, and she definitely goes and gets him to fully admit to stabbing him. Although of course by this point they realize
already
that
dead.
wasn't and then of course what triggers her realizing that Mrs. Wilson was the other piece of the puzzle was that conversation with Trentham where she was telling Sylvia about I guess she must have had a husband because she had a different name back then. It was like Parks or Parker or something like that. And you see Mary's head snap right up like, oh.
Yeah.
See, and I could see where people could miss that, Wilson
did.
admits to it because
I did.
they do it in a very British way where they're not being too direct, but they are
Right.
at the same time,
Yeah,
know. So
I know
I
I
don't-
did.
I don't care.
she
if
asks
he
her and
himself.
she doesn't say, yes, I did it. It was me all along. But she gets up and starts explaining the story of how like she
Oh, yeah.
had a baby that she gave up
Yeah.
while her sister had one that she kept and lost her job
Yeah.
for, And then
And
she
then
eventually
she-
forced William or whatever to take her back, which she
Yeah.
resented her for, which explains their whole rivalry. And it made sense. I mean, and
Yeah.
when you looked at that poisoning scene, like you guys adequately pointed out, it was like all that stuff coupled together and her
Yeah.
reaction to the photo in his room and her treatment of him. I
And
was
actually-
invested in it though. So,
I think
There is one other interesting thing that was pointed out in one of the commentaries. When Mrs. Wilson enters the study, she's carrying a little cup with coffee. It's not on a tray. It's just
Mhm.
she's just carrying it, and that was
Yep.
a breach of protocol right there.
and he says,
but-
if I wanted coffee, I'd ask her, I'd ring for it or
Right.
whatever.
But basically,
Yeah.
she
Not
had
that-
it set up. She had it set up to poison him as unobtrusively as possible. She
Mhm.
had to pivot and use his liquor glass.
And that touches
You
back
know,
on what I
right.
said about the perfect
Yeah.
servant shit too. Like,
Yeah.
you know what he's gonna
she's
want
the one
before
that
he
poisoned-
even knows
okay.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she poisoned him. He
Yeah.
was all. Remember when he got
Mhm.
stabbed, he was already dead.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
Because
Like I
she
said,
had
I looked.
poisoned him.
I already knew that, but I just didn't know
Mhm.
who poisoned. Like I said, I missed
Yeah.
I missed the signs. I
Right.
missed when it was revealed, and I had to look
Right.
up online.
And
And
So
I
It's
did
also
too.
why it's funny because the guy was pouring himself a glass from
Yeah.
that liquor.
That was really.
Yes, sir. We
Yeah.
haven't dusted for Prince yet.
I actually didn't even think
First
about that
time
until
I-
right now. Like, if he drank it, he would have died.
Right.
Well, I don't know. I think she put the.
I think she
put
just put it in the
the,
glass.
Yeah, she
but
put the
it's-
poison in the glass itself,
Maybe.
not in
Yeah.
the liquor bottle.
But if
For
anyone
me-
would have access to just poison it, just in case he had some of it,
Yeah.
it would be
I-
her.
I
And
think-
she
well,
also
again, I
seemed like
think-
she
I
would
think
have
the
thought
whole-
about multiple possibilities.
I think the whole point of her bringing in a cup was to not have to poison a bottle or something, because I think she didn't want to worry about accidental poisonings or anything like
But
that.
the cup broke.
Right.
But
Well,
may have
she probably had it in
bottle.
her pocket.
She
Yeah,
had
she
her-
might have
had it.
remember,
Had a
the
small
bottle-
bottle.
Oh,
the
and just put
bottle
it in the
did go
next
missing
one so that the
several
sound
times.
of like, putting the
Right.
glass on the tray and shit would cover up any
Right.
wrongdoings.
Oh,
So-
that makes sense.
Makes
Like you
sense.
dropped the
Yeah.
coffee.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be
Yeah.
honest, like for me, when I first saw this movie, especially after the second time, like looking at Sir William, I was like, damn, like a lot of the people in this movie, they're pieces of shit. They're awful people.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're reprehensible. But Sir William, by far, is the worst. This is the man, that's the victim, the one that we're all supposed to get, rally around. OMG, who killed him? But it's like, damn, he fucking deserved it. Like at one point,
He really
like,
did.
like Colonel Meredith's like, the bastard just saved my bacon. Like
Yeah.
no one was upset. that he
Well,
was
and actually, yeah,
dog.
there's a scene. There's
the
a
dog
scene that was.
upset. Fuck the dog.
There was a scene that
Oh,
was
I love
apparently there was a scene that was cut that involved the Stockbridges, where they were deciding whether to stay or go. And I think when Sybil came in, or Sylvia, sorry, came into the room with Miss Trentham, it was to let her know, I think, that they were getting ready to go, and so on and so forth. And when she says that they were getting ready to go, you've got that thing where Maggie Smith with Trentham's like something like to the effect of it's a pity because it would have been nice to have someone here who cares that he's dead or who's sad that he's dead. You know,
she was the only character he died.
Yeah, that was
right.
Dude, even the dog didn't really give a shit. I mean, it was just
that poor dog. That poor dog.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it was Julian Fellows who said that he felt really bad for that dog because it was like every time they yelled action, everyone had to hate the dog.
Oh, poor puppy, you're so cute. Yeah. Like I said, like when I looked at the movie the first time and then the second time, when you realize just how much of an awful person Sir William is, like this man impregnated God knows how many women in his factories. Mm-hmm. Like this man probably has dozens of children all over the place that he just gave away to fucking, orphanages. There's probably some inbreeding
maybe
with all the fucking kids that we don't know about, of course. And he did not care. He didn't care. And it's like, oh, you don't want to give it your baby? You're fucking fired, you fucking whore. And it's like, really? Like, I don't understand how Mrs. Wilson and Mrs. Croft. I get you need a job. You need references, especially with a man who's rich like Sir William. But how you could ever work for a man who forced you to give up your baby, and then your sister did not give up her baby.
I mean, dude,
thankfully, her baby dies. How could you ever work for this man?
Thankfully, times have changed, and you guys know to value yourselves more than that. I mean, you could have easily ended up in that situation, or any other woman that we know, 100 years ago or some shit like that.
Like those days, I guess.
No.
Yeah, you would have been a different person, though, raised with different, that shit would have been ingrained into you.
No. As a black woman, no. They would have had to fucking force my black ass.
Well, you would have been raised under different circumstances.
I would have been
raised. So incidentally, let's just mention that McCordle is loosely based on an actual individual. There apparently was a jerk who had a series of businesses and a similar relationship with his workers.
Yeah.
Who was confronted.
There was a couple of them, Jacob.
Well, specifically, they had one in mind. His name was like White. I want to say White Castle, but that's not it. I can't remember. but there was
hungry and confused.
there was a guy that Fellows had in mind that they knew about that did something very similar, who was confronted by and shot and killed by someone claiming to be his son. So that
nice.
Is like it's a very loose connection, but there was one they had in mind there. But
he's a scumbag, and they do a good job of like sort of making him seem like just this random eccentric rich dude with a dog at first, but then you pick up on more of the elements that Kim's talked about, with them sort of resenting him for being new money and all that. And then as it builds and you see how he treats people, you're like, this dude's a grade A fucking asshole. And then when you find out that he was like running baby factories, you're like, this guy's a legitimate piece of shit.
Right.
So by the time he dies, you really don't give a fuck about the dude. You're just, if you're invested in the movie and the characters, you're wanting to try to complete the puzzle of figuring out who could have done it.
I disagree with the dog. Like, I laughed when they kicked the dog, and then when they got rid of it, I laughed because I don't like dogs. I'm sorry, but I just don't.
No.
I don't like dogs.
Whatever.
Well, they said like,
I showed this video to a friend of mine, and they were like, "Oh my god, they killed him. They're so snobby to him. Yeah, he's kind of an asshole, but they're so snobby to him." And then when you find out about the fact that he's essentially sexually harassing Harvey Weinstein and the women under his employ, my friend was like, "Yeah, fuck that motherfucker." He flipped so
that's a moment where You know, your
Yeah.
last shred of sympathy for the dude is gone. You know?
Oh my god!
And-
There's
and
no
that-
sympathy whatsoever.
Yeah, and that whole little scene where Mary is talking with Mrs. Wilson, it's just a great little scene. It's one of the reasons, no doubt, that Helen Mirren got the Oscar nod. But there's a part where I do love that line, and they said that they weren't sure if they needed the line, but then when they saw her delivery of it, they were like, yeah, we could use that line, which was the one where Mary's like confirm. Well, she has said straight up, Mrs. Wilson has said straight up that she doesn't care about as long as her son gets to live and be safe. That's what matters. And Mary's like, well, what about your life? Haven't you been listening? I'm the perfect servant. I have no life.
Yeah, it makes total sense, dude.
Like,
I mean, she gave her whole life up thinking that this kid was adopted into a family that was vouched for by this dude, that he would have a much better life than she could have ever given him. And when he ends up in the same employ, basically, she sees that, you know, maybe forfeiting my life to get revenge on this motherfucker is probably worth it, so that my son, who obviously is here holding a grudge, you know, might pay dearly.
She kills him so her son doesn't go to jail. Doesn't go to jail.
Right.
So because you can't, because
they hanged his ass back then. I'm sure.
There's no crime in stabbing a body. Basically, I know she said that, but
right?
Like I said, but I still didn't get she was the one that poisoned. Like I said, I caught a lot of stuff, but it just somehow I missed the fact that she did it. So
it is arguably a bit subtle. Like I said, they do.
It was too subtle, which is my biggest gripe of the movie. The too many people is the second biggest gripe,
right.
But the biggest was it was so subtle about who did it that even when it was revealed who did it, I missed it. So not only did I not figure it out, but I didn't even hear it when it was given out. So that made me mad. That made me mad, and I looked it up because I did care enough to know, even though like I said, did not love the movie or anything. Didn't hate it though, but I definitely won't watch it again. Even though
it sounds like there were parts of it you really enjoyed.
What's up?
They definitely didn't make it so that it was entertaining enough for me to care about the end plot.
So I had a question for y'all. I just as a
what's up
about the detective, because we're pretty much close to the end anyway.
Yeah, we should wrap up soon.
The inspector, the fact that they never let him say his name, I always thought to myself, is that perchance so that you could just fill in your favorite one, like Poirot or some of these others, which
maybe
I could see Poirot as being one.
It's an interesting thought.
He gets the Tom out several times, but
he was such a moron that I didn't want.
And then I think wasn't it Barnes that ultimately ends up calling him Inspector Thomas or something, and he gets real indignant. It's Thompson. It's Thompson. It's like.
That part. You know, that's one of the there's a lot of oddly humorous moments in the movie and stuff that is clearly stupid humor that's in there. You know, it is shit. You know, like the dude being deaf in one ear and how that was a running thing through the movie. I thought that was pretty chuckle worthy.
That was I did notice that once, and I thought it was fun.
Yeah, it's in there like 3 or 4 times actually. Where
I only caught it once.
You know,
I only caught it once.
It's those subtle little funny things that I do enjoy.
When she was,
and then
when she was saying,
"I'm
glad you can't hear me," and he's like, "What?" Obviously, she was saying it in the ear where you can't hear, and I thought that was kind of funny. But that's the only time I noticed it. But yeah, like I said, a lot of its humor skipped over me because I find that
it's not
English dry humor
flavor.
not to be funny.
And
it's
that's
not
fair.
funny to me at all.
I think at the end of the day, objectively, it's a good movie in terms of technical aspects. You know, it's well shot, it's well written, it's well cast, it's got all.
It's a wonderful film technically.
I mean, on all the technical aspects.
I don't know if I 100% agree with everything you just said, but I agree with some of it.
I agree with half of that.
Do we have anything
Okay.
to discuss before we move
What
on?
what was that?
Do we have anything
Okay.
left in the plot to discuss before we move
I
to
think
technical?
we've pretty
think
much
that's about
hit
it.
most of the plot. I mean, you do get a nice little moment at the end where you come to realize that, because we did kind of skip a part where the detective is talking to Trentham, and he calls in Mary, and Mary lies for Trentham without even being asked to. And it's her own moment of anticipating what needs to be done. And Trentham is grateful for it. And you get a nice little moment at the end where they're actually, you see, like they're going to bond a little bit more. They scaled back from what they
Yes.
originally planned, but
It's old school, but I think their
Yeah.
relationship is probably the most reliable of the relationships between all these people and their, servants or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
she might be an asshole, but she's upfront about it, and then she's also very honest at
Right.
the same time. So it's like you don't really
Right.
have to worry about her treating you too bad because she's honest about how bad she's treating you.
Right.
I think
Very
one
good.
of the
Innocence.
lines I did like the most is when she says what did they say? He's like, oh, nothing much. Oh, come on, spill it. And she's like what did she say? I don't need you to be discreet unless you're talking about my stuff. Basically.
Then you can feel
Which
free
I
to.
thought that was funny. Like she wants all the gossip. But
Right. And then at the
her
end of
side,
that scene,
like keep it to yourself when it's on her side, but don't but listen to everybody else's gossip.
right, a few
that what
moments
was
later,
that
someone
concern?
comes in, and when they leave, she says that you can be discreet about.
Right. Wasn't
Yeah.
that her daughter? Wasn't that her daughter? I
Right.
think.
No.
I thought it was.
Mm.
Okay. See,
Yeah.
there's so many people that I
Yeah.
don't know who the fuck who's who. And it's very, very,
No,
very fucking
Lady
confusing.
Trentham does not have a daughter that appears in the movie.
Right.
I mean, dude, we could do a whole
Yeah.
podcast on just the relationships of these people. Where by the end, we
Right.
look like Charlie
Yeah,
from
I
It's Always
was
Sunny
gonna
with that
say the
spidergram
TikTok.
on his fucking wall. Like,
They need
I
to
was-
do.
I was doing a series of TikToks. I will do a YouTube video on this fucking movie for one of my next YouTube videos. You don't fucking. I'll do it.
Nice.
They need to do
We
that
didn't
they
cover.
did
But
for
Lady
Lost.
Sylvia, we don't cover
Yeah.
her. She's a bitch.
They did a
Which
thing
one?
on Lost on who's connected
Lady
to who,
Sylvia.
and that's what they need to do
Oh,
for
yeah.
this movie.
Yeah, she's pretty much hell on wheels. And actually, supposedly, no one really liked working with Kristen Scott Thomas on this movie. And afterwards, because she was half in character. Yeah, they said that she. Yeah, they said that she was so much in character, and she realized later she realized that she had been too much in character and had to apologize to some of these people. So
Yeah,
that
she
was
went full method on that shit.
yeah.
Madness to the
But anyway,
Usually makes the better actor.
and see, and this is one thing that one of the reasons I wanted to do an Altman film is, again, it comes back to that sense of realism. He encouraged his actors to be as realistic as they could be, with a few exceptions. And it
Should've done
really, what's that?
So you should have done Popeye.
Well, we've done that one.
Popeye.
That's the only one we've done. I really
I
hope
wasn't here for that, so.
I really hope we get to hit MASH, The Player, and A Prairie Home Companion, maybe some of the others over years. And, he did a movie that was the exact opposite of this. One of the ones I've seen
It was good.
was Secret Honor. Secret Honor is Philip Baker Hall as Richard Nixon, and he is the only person in the movie. He does not leave he's in Nixon's study. It's basically Nixon writing his memoirs, I think it is.
that sounds
That's it.
I'm
It's
gonna
actually a
sleep-
good
I'm gonna sleep
movie.
before
But,
you're finishing talking about it. I'm sorry.
but it's the opposite of this one.
That would put me to sleep.
Altman liked to do whatever the hell he wanted to do at the time, no matter how weird it was.
I am cool with that. I'm cool with him doing his own thing.
Right.
But
His
that is not
follow-up-
something I'd want to watch.
His follow-up to this was The Company, which was a ballet movie where Nev Campbell and Malcolm McDowell, I think, were the only name actors, and the rest of it was like a ballet company. So it was interesting. But anyway, so let's look at the
Oh, the
technical.
Would have been much
I
cooler
love
if they
that
were
movie.
vampires. That's
So-
all I'm
Wait,
gonna
no,
add.
Yeah,
no,
would've.
pause, Jacob.
What's up?
The company, the ballet company with Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah.
I have that movie. I fucking love that movie. It was about the Joffrey Ballet.
See, that was one that bored me on first viewing, but I own a copy and I will watch it again
Of
eventually.
course, it's about ballet. Boring.
I love ballet. Don't
Hey,
tell.
ballet is
You're a
not
girl,
always
ballet.
boring.
Girl.
No. I will say Black Swan is one of the best horror films I've ever seen.
God.
Oh
It's
my
so
God.
good. It's so good. I don't want to see it again.
No, I was just watching Suspiria Rich 45th
It's
anniversary
not
today.
boring.
I've done that. I have done that in a fit of self-harm.
Ooh,
It's like,
so,
I've done that.
Oh.
I just
Alright.
watched Police 2 this morning, so I don't really.
Yeah.
You don't want to know.
Is that Serbian film?
all right.
Well, no.
No.
there's not-
My
well,
sister
actually, I
took
never watched
ballet
the
and
second
stuff, and I
one.
didn't even watch her.
All right. So anyway,
But,
let's talk a little bit on technical stuff. On again, the period detail I would say was really spot on.
Yep.
They had
A+.
really heavily researched. Not only Fellows actually has a history. His family is tied to this life. And they also had on set, I think it was a butler, a cook, and a valet who
Like,
had
they
actually
sit on the silverware, and the guy's like, no, they would never do that.
Yeah, like actually, the technical expert said to
Yeah.
Robert Altman, a butler would never, a footman would never do that. And he was like, oh, that seems more realistic. He was like, that's not realistic. Like the little, like if you look at George in his
Yeah.
hands, he has this like weird like wooden thing in his hands. It was to make sure that the fucking plates were an even distance from each other. Like that's some. The
yeah.
first time I ever saw that in my real life was when I was in etiquette class, and there were people measuring distances, and we were being taught like what spoon and fork goes with what.
Yeah.
And I had not experienced that in like when I first saw Downton Abbey and this movie. I hadn't seen that shit since I was like 11 years old. I was like, wait a minute. There are people who actually like live like this in real life. It's not just some put on bullshit with bougie black people. Like there are people
Yeah.
it's not just some bullshit that black people with money do. Like, wait a minute, what the fuck? And I'm like,
It isn't just bougie black people, it's bougie white people too. It's everybody.
Yeah, well, I know
If
that,
I was like
but I was
stupid
like,
rich,
this can't be real. Like, who does
I could
this
see
shit?
having like a weed butler like Snoop Dogg, where he just rolls blunts for you and like goes on adventures with you and
Oh my
shit.
god, I read it. I would love that.
Like, that's what I want. You know,
No,
I might
I
send him to
love
the
that.
store
I
for like
fucking
Slim
love
Jims
that.
and Red Bull or something every now and again, but he's not gonna have that. I mean, we're just gonna basically be bros.
Well, you gotta have you gotta have your
And I just get to
stuff.
call him Winston, no matter what his real name actually
Oh,
is. Like, that's our relationship, bro. Like, you're a person to me. I just want
Okay.
to call you Winston. If that's all right.
Actually, I had something I was holding for a bit
Sure,
for the
sure.
technical. It
Okay.
has to do with the sound. And
Ooh.
though
Yeah.
I agree the sound design has a lot of excellent features for those listening in stereo, Dave and
fucked,
Tammy
yeah.
both had a point when they were talking about
Yeah.
mumbling and not being able to understand what was being said back and forth.
Oh yeah.
You're
Yep.
listening on the wrong sound system.
Yes.
The actual Altman's work actually backfires, and you can barely understand what half of the people are saying.
Yeah,
So
that's
if
how
you're
I
not
was.
listening to the
And
right sound-
I have had that experience with some of his films, and so I fully agree that it's a
Totally can see
possibility.
That's
I
what
watched
I'm
it on
saying.
my
Like with
Kindle
me when I
because I
first
couldn't
saw
find
it.
it online for free. So I
That's what
couldn't
I'm
find it on a streaming site for free. So I had to watch it online on my Kindle, and it was just
Yeah.
the sound. My sound isn't that great on my Kindle, and
Well,
with
that's
this
what I'm
movie,
saying.
it was
When
rough.
I first saw it, I had studio headphones that were meant for electric
Yeah.
pianos.
you
So I
could hear
had
different
goddamn
notes
like
and-
$400 headphones that I
What the
had
fuck?
on, listening to it on my fucking desktop.
You basically
I'm
had
like,
that Dolby shit strapped to your fucking skull, and you just watched the movie, and it was
Mo,
rad because you could
Mo.
hear it all around you, you know. And it's-
dude, let me tell you one
as
thing.
soon as you were talking about it, I was like nerd bonering over here. I just didn't want to interrupt anyone, you know. I was like,
Okay,
yes, I'm
Mo.
doing this. I'm doing this like tomorrow, you know.
Dude, right quick, me and you, right quick. I saw Paranormal Activity and Grave Encounters for the first time with those fucking headphones. Those headphones died a few years. I miss those headphones. They were the best. I got them from a music store. And
Good
let me
deal.
tell you, the surround sound was great. I got them like for a huge discount because I bought a whole bunch of shit for my flute and my piano. And OM fucking G, the surround
dude.
sound. Fuck Beats by Dre.
It's amazing.
Fuck Apple AirPods or AirPods Max. No.
Oh yeah,
An
you can get some dope
off-brand, like,
headsets, man.
Yamaha, or Sony, whatever shit from the music store was the best fucking headphones I've ever had in my life. Yes, they were clunky and they were big. They weighed my head down, but you would hear shit.
So,
Woo! Sorry.
so Dave,
I'm nerding out.
so-
I love you, Mo.
So
I love
Dave,
you too.
yeah, I had a question for
Not
both
in that
of
fucking downstairs, like Downton Abbey, Gosford
No.
Park kind of way,
No.
Brandon. Don't worry.
Like bros. We love each other like bros.
Yeah.
So Dave, Tammy, I had a question for y'all. If y'all could have heard the voices better, if it actually had been done in a quality, like a quality of sound that y'all could have understood the conversations in a much clearer tone, do you think that you might have actually enjoyed the movie more?
Probably not.
It's the taste
I know you didn't ask me, but I know I would have because, like I said, I ain't like it either, but I didn't hate it.
Yeah, I could have guessed Dave would say probably
Dave, I
not,
think
but I would
Dave.
say that I think there would be
I
more
don't-
parts that Dave would remember as being kind of funny for a second if he could hear. All
I don't
those
think
things.
it would have made. I don't think it would have made that much of a difference with me either because it was so much conversation here and this one here and this one here and that one here. It wasn't even so much about not being able to hear it. It was being able to figure out who's saying what about who and who's saying what about this person and this person. It was just so many. It wasn't even so much about not being able to hear it.
Yeah,
I
mean,
agree that it would
I
not
think
make the
it's-
film
I
great,
think it's a
but
pacing
it
for
makes the
them.
film better.
So
it could have a half hour trimmed off of it
So-
and
so-
probably one extra. Okay, let's
They
put
could
it this
have
way.
half the cast trimmed
If
off.
they accidentally tagged somebody else at that fucking bird hunt, like just blew their brains out in extraordinary fashion, okay, and then had the rest of the movie be kind of like, oh, that was a fucked up accident, right? And then William gets murdered by poison.
There was just so
I think
much.
people would have been like, all right, we had that head explosion in the first third, so I'm good for a while.
There
Yeah,
was
that
just
was-
so
that would make
much.
the movie- that would
There
make
was
the movie
just
100
so
times
much
better.
conversation. There was just
Yeah.
so much conversation going on from one scene to the next. What really was going on was kind of fuddled through the mix of the classes
Exactly.
and the junk that could have been just tossed out to the side. You didn't need all
To
of
a
that.
point. I mean,
No,
you
not
know,
to
also,
a point. No,
No, it's
sorry.
to a point.
I
Because
agree.
honestly, I think
disagree.
on the other hand, the lingering of the film's runtime also helps because nothing in particular would be going on if you lived that life, dude. You'd just be gossiping about these rich fucks upstairs and doing your normal
That's
daily
what's
routine.
happening.
And then all of a sudden a murder happens. So the movie then
No,
takes
not
a
all
turn
of a
towards
sudden.
that.
It took like 3
It took
quarters
10
of the
years.
movie to get to it. And then they didn't even like,
I think it was an hour and 20 minutes, maybe.
They didn't even
It would have been better movie if it was Downton flashy, is what Dave was saying.
Yeah, cut 30 minutes out of it, blow someone's head off during the fucking bird hunt. You got a gem on your hands.
It would have definitely been better if they.
See, I don't think it was the sound itself at all. I have a nice Bose system. So believe me, I have sound.
Imagine if the short dude actually shot a fucking pigeon and then blew it through the dude's head. You know what I mean? So the pigeon or whatever the pheasant that they were hunting was just laying over there like covered in brains. That'd be awesome.
Okay.
Otherwise,
That'd be a
set
different
design,
film.
costume
Bird
design,
brains.
everything
So-
else was near perfect as far as I was
I
concerned.
love
So-
the costumes.
On the other side of the sound, I do want to make sure we talk about the music because I love
God.
I
Beautiful.
love Patrick Doyle's score, and I love the use of Alvar Novello's songs. And again, the performances of them are quite solid, I think. But what are y'all's thoughts on those?
Oh, I absolutely fucking loved it, dude. There was a part where like it shows one of the random kitchen people like leaning so far. It looked like that person was actually asleep, maybe.
Because you was
and
watching the movie.
I could see being that's good stuff. I could see being at work, like I've been at work and felt like that, you know, when there's
Yeah.
like Christmas music on or something, and it's like you're leaning, you know, your fucking fists in your throat, and you're just leaning against a stairwell, and I mean nowhere near what these people dealt with for sure, you know, but still lame. But the music can be a fun thing at times like that.
Yeah.
You know?
All right.
And it definitely it brought the spirit of the movie up a little bit. I think that
Mhm.
whole section where he's like singing that medley of songs, you really can kind of forget about how like shitty everybody in this movie is for a minute, and just enjoy this
except
dude
for Miss
singing.
McGonagall,
Yeah.
which also
Yeah.
that.
Oh, she's
But-
fucking awesome, dude.
but-
She should have been
but she was-
roasting even more in the movie.
but
I
she
think that
still
would have
would've,
made it better.
She was still like she was a bitch though. I mean, it was just she was funny.
Like I said, she's
Anyway.
so pleasantly unpleasant. It's infectious. You know?
She was the
Like,
opposite of Miss McGonagall in Harry Potter. I mean, she was so nice in that. You know, you could tell
Yeah.
she was like a super.
Like I
nice
said,
teacher or
dude,
something.
if I was that girl, Mitty or whatever, I probably would have been like set with old McGonagall there because
Yeah.
she's gonna be a bitch sometimes, but she
was
with you
upfront
that
about
she's
it.
a bitch,
Yeah,
and she's not gonna like treat you any worse than she.
I
already
like how
does,
she made
you
her
know,
clean the shirt, stay up all night long, clean the shirt. And
that
she's
was
like,
pretty
I'm not
fucked
gonna,
up.
I'm
But
not
at the
gonna
same
wear it
time,
anyways.
it's just a shirt. What you took it out of her
Let's just say
closet
that, yeah.
with this overpriced Motel 6? Chill out.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know? It's the principle of it, you know. But it's like if I was doing it, it would be like that's pretty annoying. But man,
No.
this girl says some funny shit, you know, like, and she pays me good, so
Right.
I'm with
Now,
it.
one thing I will point out about the soundtrack.
I'll
that-
feed you ginger snaps while you watch your stories. Let's do it.
Oh my God.
What were you saying, Brandon?
we talk about on this channel a lot is this soundtrack that we would listen to on its own, and regularly I usually
Oh, I
say
would.
this stuff fades in the background, meh, but not in this case because I have listened to the soundtrack on its own,
Because I made
and it is
you.
glorious. No, before you even that, I've listened to it
Oh,
before. Yes,
okay. See, okay.
I love the piano. I love the background.
Shit, how the
and
tables have
songs are good,
turned.
too.
I
Because
I
made
wouldn't
you.
listen to it on my own, except if they asked me, "Do you want to listen to the soundtrack or watch the movie again?" I would pick the soundtrack.
Oh, there's probably. I mean, those
I-
songs are bangers for what they are, you know.
I would definitely pick the soundtrack over watching the movie.
It
again.
is interesting that whether the several Oscars this was up for, it was not nominated for the music. And I still say this would be a good example of a use of music in film. Oscar, I think. Do we have any more on the technical that we want to hit, or are we pretty good on that? We
Not
think?
really. I mean, you covered the camera stuff pretty well when you talked about
Right.
how he like keeps it
The moving
moving
cameras,
and it makes the place feel more alive, which definitely this movie does well. I think you
Right.
guys have touched on several times how like kind of the downstairs is the focus. And the way they put you in that fly on the wall kind of position with the way the movie
Right.
is done with the sounds all around you and different conversations and shit. I think they do a good job of like drawing your perspective without you necessarily realizing it to being the perspective of the help, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of watching all these fucked up like rich people situations from the outside in. And then snippets of the downstairs stuff,
You know
So
what's
like
funny?
I felt like I was like another one of these like a houseboy, like fucking.
Yeah.
She was talking about, where I was like, I'm just hiding behind a candelabra, like, are you gonna give me a shoe, sir, or whatever? It sets me free. I don't know how that works.
Well, no,
Can I have a sock, please?
So no. Do you have either HBO Max or Amazon Prime now?
I mean, yeah, I did.
Okay, so there's a movie I want you to watch. It's called Conspiracy. It has Kenneth Branagh and Sonny Tucci.
Great movie.
It's a great movie. It's in Colin Firth. It was from the early 2000s. It's a movie
I love.
Yeah, it's about
the
meeting at Wannsee where they had the meeting about the final solution in Nazi Germany, where that was the meeting they made the decision to exterminate all the Jews in Germany and above and beyond. So there's a very excellent camera trick, and you don't even fucking notice it in the movie, where when they're sitting at the table, the camera stays level, like literally eye level and head level, so that you feel like you're sitting at the table. It's very subtle.
Dude, I mean, this does it in a more distant fashion, and I think that suits the subject matter because this is, largely from the perspective of the help.
And also, the movie's told in like real time in that movie.
Yeah,
and it's like with Gosford Park. I must be Downton Abbey. That was Downton Park, Gosford Abbey.
Downtown Abbey.
Is that
careful? Supreme's gonna do a collab of them soon. Release like a sweatshirt. That'd be fucking awesome. Like
they have actually these very subtle like differences in upstairs.
Gosford Park X Downton Abbey, and it's just
upstairs. You have a very warm candlelight lighting of the upstairs, and then during the daytime it's all very bright. But downstairs it's kind of dark.
It very much does look like a ship's engine room,
right?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but it's not. It's kind of dark and dingy.
I watched a ton of Black Sails lately, and I would go that far.
Actually, I love
the lower decks of most of their ships. Most of their ships weren't gross on there either.
Oh, in the downstairs part, the servants area.
Area. That's really neat.
Well, you know what they did that? Why? You know why they did that? Is that so they could see into those rooms and make sure the servants weren't doing something they weren't supposed to be doing.
Well, no. In the film, they had all that glass painting partly for lighting in the film so that they could see.
Yeah, well, that too.
Yeah, but they're
in reality, in like those real type of houses, they would not have had those sort of like glass everywhere because that would have been very expensive. So they would not have done that. But in houses that did have that, it was because they could keep an eye on their servants.
Yeah.
I mean, let's put it this way: Jeff Bezos fired a dick rocket into space. So this dude very well might have sprung for some fucking glass.
I want a Tesla so fucking bad right now, but you know what? Fuck Elon Musk. I'd rather buy a fucking Audi.
With a rocket.
Yeah. So
I don't care. I'm getting a fucking Audi.
All right. So anyway, I think it's probably enough time to unless anyone has any other final thoughts they want to throw out about the production or the story or whatever, I think we can move on to favorites probably.
I think it's just important to know that this is not a movie that you should approach like a normal movie. You got to just look at it like a puzzle or a game and go into it with that in mind. It's either going to click with you or it isn't. And don't feel bad if based on our recommendation you don't fucking like it, because that's going to make up about half.
Don't say all our recommendations because I would not recommend it.
So I'm going to take as a very likely possibility here for Kroll, Tammy, and Dave. Most likely, I'm curious if Forrest or Mo or anyone would agree. Robert Altman said in the commentary that one of the reasons he wanted the moving cameras was he did not want this to feel like your usual stodgy British period piece. He wanted the cameras moving to make it more lively and less less static.
It
feels like a refined British version of The Office.
Yeah. That's something that I've noticed a lot with a few other movies of his that I've seen.
Right.
The Office is fucking great.
Well,
Don't
you know
compare
what I
this
mean,
to
though.
Office.
It's I mean, come on, let's be
Office
objective
is
here.
fucking
Like
great.
the movie
Right.
moves the
And
camera around
hilarious.
a lot, so like Jake says, it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like it's shooting some piece of history. It feels like it's shooting an
I guess
actual
it
day
does.
in the
It
life
does
of
do
these
that.
people. You know,
Right.
It does do
so
that. but
objectively, cinematography wise, the
Yeah.
movie
it still
does
has
some
the
cool
stuffy
stuff.
comedy that I don't get.
I mean,
And
I don't
the,
like
part.
certain things either, but I mean, I can, at least recognize like those merits of it. It was shot well,
Right. And again, the idea of having
I
the
agree, it was
multiple
shot well.
cameras, the idea of having the multiple cameras was also supposed to help with the realism. And I think it does because the
Yeah.
characters are not acting to a set camera. There are two cameras and they don't know which one they're going to end up being used.
And it does
So,
feel like it catches them at like
yeah.
candid moments almost
Right.
sometimes
Okay.
from like
I
different
agree.
angles.
I agree.
I mean,
that-
I have to be fair. I hate to play the devil's advocate because the devil's not need an advocate. However, to be fair to Forrest and Dave and Tammy and Kroll, this movie is fucking not for everyone.
No,
Right.
not at
No,
all.
it's not.
Oh,
There are
I get
definitely
that.
gonna be people who are looking at this movie and they're
You
like,
know.
there's gonna be people like myself who grew up with fucking Jane Austen and Shakespeare, like, oh, I fucking love this kind of movie. People like me who wasn't, I've been an Anglophile since I was like 7 years old. Just being fair, I'm a huge Anglophile.
Dude, I'm just like some drunk fucking stone dude, and I really enjoyed the movie.
I can't help it.
I think it
Hold on,
spans
let me finish.
various tastes. Yeah,
You're
go
gonna
ahead.
have people that are not gonna like this film because
Yeah.
the pacing is very fucking slow. Let me be fair, it's so slow. And
It'll
there
murder
are
you.
auxiliary characters
murder
that you
you.
don't give a fuck about.
It's not that it's just slow. There is just so much going on. I can't even pay attention to it. And
Exactly.
you'd have to look at this millions of times to even get every single detail down.
And there are characters
So
that
if
you
it
just
doesn't
Not that I
click
care.
like it did for you guys, then it's
Yeah, I have no idea who's who. I don't know the actors and actresses, the names, and it just it makes it very confusing. And of course, a few people kind of look alike, so
It makes
you
it
just-
it's kind of like
easy to invest yourself in any of the characters and not
it's
give
kind
a
of
fuck
like
about
a-
that.
I
it's
disagree
kind
with
of
that.
like
I did try to get into the characters, and I did like a few of them.
yeah.
I just didn't know who was who, so it was very difficult to.
It's kind of like a
tell
it's
who
kind
I
of like
liked.
in a sense it's kind of like a magic eye where you just have to kind of just relax and take it all in and
look at
maybe even look at it a little funny, and then it kind of takes sharper focus and you can see, oh, it's a schooner.
If I
But
wanted
anyway.
to go to sleep, I'd go to sleep.
But anyway, let's go ahead and talk. Kroll, if you were to single out a favorite character, action, scene, what would you say?
Well, definitely. I mean, I really like Minnie. I really liked her, and like I said, the probably the the card table scene was kind of funny, even though she was being such a bitch. But it was funny. It was funny how she called out that girl about, why don't you come play cards, and because she had just heard that gossip about her, and
Right.
she like basically called them out, and it was funny, and so I guess that character is a favorite too, with Mitty. So I guess the two of them. I like the
Okay.
actor a little bit. Definitely hated him with that rape scene. That was fucked up. I think it was kind of funny that he was an actor. But I also think it was funny that they dropped coffee in his lap too. So
Mhm.
that's great.
I don't know, I didn't hate the character. But yeah, I definitely the whole trying to have his way with her was fucked up. So that I definitely
Yeah, it's some crazy Hollywood shit.
yeah, that was definitely that's the
Mhm.
kind of villain that I just hate. Not the
Mhm.
a villain I like because they're such villain. Like that's just
Yeah, it's gross.
if you kill someone, you're a villain. If you try to raise someone, you're just fucked up.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
That's how I feel it.
All right.
And so that's what in a scene, I guess, like I said, the card table, and also, like I said, in the bedroom when she's telling her to spill the gossip, basically, but keep your mouth shut about mine. and the way she says it is really cool too. So I'd have to say those two scenes are probably my favorite. So like I said, I didn't come out of this completely hating it. I came out a little annoyed with not knowing who did it, and like I said, with so many people, it was. I mean, I'm sitting there with the tablet right in front of my face, and I'm not really doing anything. I'm paying attention to this movie, and there's just so much going on. And then, yeah, if there was better sound, I might have liked it better.
Yeah, let's put it this way. Like, you know,
I can't say
5 years from now, since we're doing our 5-year celebration with this shit, 5 years from now, I was able to come to you and like we watched it, like,
I don't know
or
if I
you come to me
it.
or something. You know,
Maybe
you might.
yeah,
I'm sure I could convince you, and then you see it with that shit, and it's like, oh, there's little bits of this that I missed that are
I refuse.
cool, you know?
Yeah, it was like I could have
have
watched it on my TV if I wanted to watch it. But
We
you know,
need to do
I don't
another one
like
of
movies
those.
I like. Never mind movies I had never seen. So, and not one
right.
that I seemed like I wanted to watch. I mean, I watched it because it was the movie we were watching. So, you know.
All right. All right. So, how about you, Forrest?
I would say Clive Owen and Helen Mirren as the servant, as the below stairs servants. I just really enjoy anything they do.
Mm-hmm.
I always look forward to seeing them in anything.
Right. I agree. Actually, when I saw this film, I had seen Owen's film Croupier, which I really enjoyed. I thought that was a good, solid film. And it turns out that's something I have in common with Robert Altman, because he had seen Croupier, and that's why he cast Owen in the film. So that was kind of fun. That was my introduction to him. But yeah, I like him as an actor. He's
and Helen
pretty
Mirren,
solid.
of course. Yeah.
Oh, she's great too.
I think my introduction to Clive Owen was in Children of Men.
That was the year after this, and that was a phenomenal film.
Yeah.
We'll have to.
Mine was actually Sin City.
No.
Oh.
My first
well, that's
I
That's
saw
a good
King
one, too.
Arthur before this movie, so
That
I was
one,
like, "Oh
and
my
then-
god, Clive Owen!" Like,
Yeah.
I fell in love with him with King Arthur, and then I saw this movie after. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
"Oh, that's Clive Owen!" And then of
makes
course,
good flour too.
what?
You make good flour too.
And I remember, like,
Yeah.
my ex, he listened to, oh my god, the Ricky Gervais, like he had a podcast or whatever with his or a show with his two friends, and there's this one dude who was obsessed with Clive Owen, and he kept calling him Clive Warren. And I was like,
Okay.
why is he calling him Clive? I was so damn dumb. I was like, but why is calling him Clive Warren? And he's like, because he doesn't know his last name. And I was like, okay, you don't have to yell at me, nigga.
Well, he did. I mean, but that's
All
the
right.
humor of it, you know.
Yeah.
Those
All
Ricky
right.
Gervais interviews were always great. I especially love the one where I think he has Warwick Davis sit on his lap with Elmo.
Oh, God.
Oh, geez.
Warwick was
Okay.
down. I don't know why you guys are like,
Clive Owen, no. He has so much. I feel bad for Clive Owen because he has so much promise, and like,
Yeah.
where's he been in the last like several years?
I
Like,
know.
He's been working, but it hasn't been as high profile as you would think. That's for sure.
Yeah, like he was someone.
The last
that
time I
always
saw
really
him,
wanted to make a thing.
the last time I saw him in anything was Shoot 'Em Up. So I don't know.
Oh, that was an interesting one. So, how about you, Tammy? Is there anything that you could consider a favorite, or?
Well, I like the older Miss Sylvia. That's the older lady, right?
Right?
I liked her. I just like how she just said what she wanted to say, and then
Oh wait,
you don't-
you said
which
Sylvia,
which
yeah.
makes
Oh, sorry.
makes me think that you'd actually like Downton Abbey.
See, what we got to
Downton
do
Abbey.
for this to make it like appealing to everyone is convert everything to the extreme. So they're all bloodsuckers, right? So they're vampires, and they're all like having sex with everybody. So they're vampires that are throwing dicks around like tomahawks the
Oh my
entire time.
God.
They're
I
just
guess
throwing them.
I guess I do give this film credit for being the middle child of Upstairs, Downstairs, and Downton Abbey. It's like the thing that they did in between. The thing that they did in between before they did greatness.
Right.
Oh,
So-
to me, Upstairs Downstairs was like a million times slower and drier than this.
I know. I watched like 2 episodes and I could barely get into it.
Oh, I loved it,
don't-
but you had to
Yeah.
work to get into it, and then
Yeah.
once you were into it, you're into it. But good gosh,
I do want to see it
remember,
eventually.
I
Far more
remember
easy to
watching
get
the
into.
original Upstairs
Right.
Downstairs
So-
when I was a kid. Like that was when we first moved from Louisiana to Virginia, and my mom got like the cable that was up here. We did not have this in Louisiana. It was the first time I really had full access to PBS, and I was able to watch it more often. And in the private school that I went to, we watched a lot of PBS during the daytime. And I was like, what's this Upstairs Downstairs? And I became very immersed in Masterpiece Theater. Like that was the thing in the 80s, Masterpiece Theater. And they were showing like reruns of Upstairs Downstairs.
Disagree
And
with
Remember
that.
that the Degrassi Junior High?
No, I
All right.
fuck that shit. No, that was not PBS. I was
Well,
very
All right.
Wasn't
All right.
Canada.
And Masterpiece Theater was a
Okay.
thing because the Muppets also
Yeah.
then altered.
Monsterpiece
I'd
Theater.
rather watch Sesame
Thank
Street
you,
on
Dave. Thank
PBS.
you. No, to highlight how weird I am. Yeah, so-
Fraggle
Mo,
Rock,
to
Degrassi,
highlight-
hockey, and wrestling were part of
All right.
Saturday morning when you were a kid in Canada.
No.
anyways.
To highlight how I'm not in Canada. I was born in Louisiana and then raised in Virginia. To highlight how weird of a black kid I was, I spent I want to say like several months, maybe a summer, I don't know, when I was like 8 or 9 years old, annoying the shit out of my mom by faking an English accent, a proper English accent, because
That's
I
awesome.
watched so much Masterpiece Theater. I was able to affect a proper English to the
I
point
respect
where
that.
we fooled other people, or rather, I fooled other people. They were like, "Is that kid with you adopted?"
See,
Like,
there's
that's
like
my
a Calvin
fucking
and
kid.
Hobbes
It's
style
stupid.
strip behind that where it's like
Yeah.
you
Alright.
annoy your parents from Masterpiece Theater
Was it-
and then you convince them to buy you like a
Alright.
Doctor Who box set or something.
Was it
Hey,
kind of
hey,
like
Kim.
that?
So
Was
all
it kind
right.
of like that in the movie The Butler?
Hey Kim,
So
my
We-
mother had made an English accent, and she convinced a teacher for half a year that she was from England. So,
all right. So let's continue. Let's continue on with favorites. Mo, what are your favorites?
Oh god, dude. I think if I had to pick like obvious ones, it would be the whole, look, he tracked mud in here, and he's like, just forget about it, and then he talks about like that whole scene was a laugh out loud, like, oh shit, kind of moment.
Okay.
That one, all of the Maggie Smith stuff where she's just roasting fools the entire time. That's actually my favorite thing of the movie, if I'm honest. I don't know how anybody could watch most of this and not find it funny with Maggie Smith in there and those like backhanded comments.
yeah, Miss McGonagall
Right.
was funny.
She like I keep saying it and I hope it catches on that she's like she's basically pleasantly unpleasant, you
Right.
know?
Right, I agree.
And that's kind of it the whole time. Like she's kind of complimenting them, but at the same time, she's talking shit,
She's insulting them at the same time.
and she's looking them right in the face when
Yeah.
she's doing it.
Oh,
half
yeah,
the time,
I
where
should
she's
talk
like,
about it behind
it's
their back.
not very good, is it?
I have women. They're dead now. I had women in my family that were like that, pleasantly unpleasant.
Right.
They would read you for fucking filth, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't even realize it because they did it in such a proper way.
But see, at the same time, when it came to the point where they were accused of murder, I felt
Yeah.
like defensive of the old gal because it was
Right.
like, she's at least honest with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
And the
I would protect her like that. I think if I was a
Oh yeah,
servant,
obviously she didn't do
because
it.
it's like she's
you
straight
have-
with us. These
Yeah.
motherfuckers aren't straight with you.
and this movie,
Well, she had a motive,
because
but
he was going to cut her off.
you have your characters. They were like, well, obviously this person wouldn't do it. Like Isabel
Honestly,
would never
I'd rather
kill
live out my
nobody.
life making Pop-Tarts for some ex-heiress that's like living on an allowance like Maggie Smith was than do any of the shit that was expected of the people that were living with these other guys, you know.
Well, like,
Because she
okay,
seemed
so-
very, she bossed, you know, Mita around or whatever, but not in that way where it was like really that inconvenient.
Right.
It's just like,
No,
oh,
she
she wants
honestly,
to wear the
I
pink
would
shirt.
have
Except
thought
for the
that
shirt.
Lady Lewis, honestly, like Lady
Yeah.
Sylvia, she would have been the most out of left field. Like, oh my God, that would have shocked me if Lewis had been the one to kill Sir William. Because remember, Lewis was so overtly devoted to Lady Sylvia, even though
Yeah.
she was a bitch. And people were like,
Yeah.
in like Elsie even said that, you know, if Lewis's mother died, she would find it less interesting than one of Lady Sylvia's farts. Like, she was that fucking devoted to Lady Sylvia. So
hmm
honestly, when the climax comes and you find out who actually did the deed, I'm like, oh shit, it wasn't Lewis. Because
Okay, this
obvious
might interest you
that
guys
Lady
on
Sylvia
some
fucking
level,
hated Sir William.
All right. Well,
and
what's
it'll
up?
be quick, I promise, Jake, because I know you got to wrap this up.
I'm
But,
sorry.
yeah. we need
one
to-
thing that actually I'll talk to you guys about it afterwards. There you go,
Go
Jake.
ahead.
Well, I feel like you know the rapey dude, the actor guy, what's his name?
Yeah.
Kid from Cruel
Ryan
Intentions.
Philippe.
That
Denton.
motherfucker, like
Yeah.
his character at first, and maybe it's because I've been conditioned. I don't like to say it like that, but there's a lack of a better word. I thought that they were going to reveal that those guys were gay together, you know.
Oh, they did. Oh,
Which ones?
they
I
did
was like,
totally.
yeah, I thought that he was like smuggling in his lover into this.
Yeah, I agree
Well,
because
yeah.
they said he wanted him there
And
when they go shooting.
That's actually
I was like,
interesting.
oh, what? Actually, I was thinking like, I thought he was.
this is not even being disrespectful. I thought it was kind of
bisexual.
sweet, you know.
I thought he
It
was
was
bisexual
obvious.
Like,
because he was sleeping with a woman, and I think he was sleeping with him. I
Yeah,
think
but
he was
that
kind of
threw me
using.
for a
It
loop
seemed like
more
he was
than
using
who the
him,
people
but
were.
he didn't care about.
It
sleeping
was.
with a
I
guy.
think. I want to say. I'm gonna be honest. It was kind of obvious that Henry Denton was. Well, clearly he was interested in women. He was clearly sleeping with Lady Sylvia. He
Yes.
almost, you know.
Okay, so I'm not the only one who
assaulted
picked
Harry.
up on that, like
Yeah.
gay
Not at all.
tension.
Oh, he
a little
sexually
bit.
assaulted her. He just
No,
didn't.
I definitely picked that
Well,
up.
Wiseman
Hey,
clearly
let's be
had an interest in him.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
And then I can't remember who it was that used this particular term, but they
Gay
said
for
they
gay.
didn't even they didn't even feel that Denton was really even bisexual or anything, just a opportunist. That was
Well,
the term they used. That he
Well,
was
yeah, I guess.
Jacob,
Yeah.
he was gay
Yeah.
for pay.
Yeah.
Henry
Yeah.
Denton. I mean,
he was an opportunist. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
He was acting very, if you want to call it from that time period, like use the phrase, he was
Right.
acting kind of squirrely around them. Because
Yeah.
Ivor, if you look at some of Ivor,
Oh, yeah.
if you look
Yeah.
at some of his mannerisms, even though he's like stroking, like he's being flirtatious with Lady Sylvia, some of his mannerisms, he's clearly of the alphabet
Yeah.
community. At least the way that they're putting him in this movie.
And supposedly the historical record
I
is
did not
that
notice
that
that.
is how he swung.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Yes,
Supposedly, yeah.
We don't want to get
Yeah.
fucking sued. Allegedly. But
Yeah.
with Morris Weissman, it's kind of obvious, like, well,
Yeah.
later, it was like, dude, what the fuck? But Henry, because he's there for a role and he's
Mhm.
starring in, I feel like he wasn't gay for pay, like in the sense of like he was fucking Weissman to get a role.
Probably.
Oh, definitely. Like a lot of people did that back then. Like he was the male version of the casting couch, you know.
Yeah, he was getting twinked out for some paycheck, but then it didn't come through. But he was like
it
all
coming
jittery
through.
and
It was
shit.
definitely coming through. He was playing a butler in the next film,
Yeah.
but his proclivities leaned more towards women. And then maybe I hate to even go here, but maybe with his like attempt on Mary, It was more or less like, let me assert my dominance. I'm still a man.
I was just thinking the exact same thing, Cam. Exact same
Still
Oh
thing.
my
fucked
god,
up.
yes. Oh my god, are we thinking the same thing?
Yeah.
We were thinking
Yes!
the exact same thing.
Oh my god, yes.
I was thinking the same thing that he felt like he wasn't really being raped by him because he was letting him, but he felt like he had to because it was his job and he wanted to make more money. So in doing Mary, he kind of set up his dominance, making her do something that she didn't want to do, and so he could make himself feel better that way.
Let me assert my dominance over this girl that's
Exactly.
below me.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because she's a woman.
You absorbed
and
a
also,
surprising amount
I'm
of this
still a
movie
man.
for someone who didn't like it, girl.
Well, like I said,
No, what?
I think you liked elements of it quite a bit.
I liked elements of it, and I tried to enjoy all of it. But like I said, my issues with it is too many people, and then the reveal of the murderer like really pissed me off. Like I didn't catch it, I didn't get it, and it just. I mean, it made sense after I read it online, but it just that's both basically. If I had heard more and there was a lot less characters, I probably would have liked it a lot more.
All right, so it's Dave's turn next.
Oh boy,
I would have to say that. Okay, there's that moment
when the credits happen.
There, not quite that bad, but there's a moment where the maid ends up remembering that she needs to go and wash a piece of clothing, and the other maid is fucking in the other room, and when she comes around the corner, she's like, you could have knocked. For some reason that amused me, so that was kind of a favorite. And the aforementioned scene where dude gets the drink spilled on his crotch, and Maggie just looks at her newspaper like she's laughing into the newspaper, but it was damn well about the crotch.
The coffee
stain.
Yeah, she's laughing her ass off.
Right.
Oh, she wasn't pretending that she wasn't laughing at that.
Right. So, all right. How about you, Kim?
What?
Favorites.
Oh shit!
She's gonna say the whole movie.
Yeah, the whole fucking movie.
I know you like that scene where he's singing at the piano.
Oh my god, we're poor.
That
baby.
was a good one.
Yeah, it was. Ivor did well on that with the piano and the singing and stuff.
And Mabel was sitting there with him, and she's looking all dreamy. I do love that scene. I do, but I feel like my favorite scene. Oh. Shut up.
Well, I could go real quick while she's determining her favorite.
I'm taking
basically, for me, I think it's a combination of that scene where the dude is like, they've got people to clean that up. Focus on your job.
Oh, did I skip you, Mo? I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
When you were talking about like the detective dude doing the doing the footprints.
That stuff is great too. I thought that the stupid stuff in the movie was great. There are several moments of it too that are in there that don't even have to do with the detective, like when what's his ass snaps that salute in the mirror for no reason.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like there's several weird moments of like humor in the movie.
He had reason for it because he wanted to be in the military and he didn't.
Or it was more like I think he regretted not doing it.
Yeah. For him, so that's why.
Yeah.
Because he was shamed and jailed for it.
Yeah.
Which was a huge shame back then.
True enough. Point being though, it was random, like him snapping the salute.
Yeah, a little bit.
It was one of those things where maybe I don't know, different mentalities. I found it hilarious.
I have to know the history of that time period and like what people his age would have been experiencing from almost 20 years from previously. You would have
maybe I should have been crying. I was laughing though. You know.
It was a little
Because it
weird
was-
and a little comical. So yeah, you're right.
And then there's other moments like the whole dude being deaf in his left ear or whatever the whole time. Like there's running comedic things throughout this movie that are there, you know.
I have it now. One of my favorite scenes would be when Lady Stockbridge is crying after William's been killed. And Charles Dance is like, ugh, everyone would think you're Italian. And he's
Actually,
like,
if I remember correctly,
that
I think
was harsh.
if I remember correctly, I think that was the line that Julian Fellows said was his favorite line.
everyone would think you're
It was
Italian.
like I was like, what a dick. He's just like making all kinds of scoffing noises because she's crying because the dude's dead. You know, like he didn't give a shit for it. You know,
like he knew his wife was in love with this man. Like she's not in love with you. She doesn't want to be with you. She's in love with this guy. And he also looks down
Still,
and
to say quiet or people will think you're Italian or something, whatever the fuck is
anyone
like
would think you're
racist as
Italian.
shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny.
I didn't really get that, but
I mean, I guess if you're Italian, you might be offended, but
I'm not Italian. I just do they cry a lot? I've never heard that before. So.
not to my knowledge, so they don't give a fuck.
I think
Forget
there's
about it.
there's sort of a I think there was sort of a British feeling that like the people from the Mediterranean area tended to be more emotional or whatever. Like,
Oh, okay. See, I didn't even get the joke. I didn't even get the saying. I just thought he was being kind of a jerk the way with his.
Well, it's also more. I mean, Spanish people also they do something called keen.
Yeah.
Where especially widows, they would just wail.
Oh God! They had. Well, I was living with some people.
That's where it is.
Of that ethnicity, and the mother died. She was living in her house, and she passed away. And she was like 90 or something. So it was like they knew it was coming type thing for like a long time. But when she did, there were people in and out of the house for over a week. Like this was a week, like almost a 2-week long fucking week. It was just crazy, absolutely crazy. There was like 50 people in and out of the house like every day.
And British people don't do that. Like that's that whole like
Right.
American people don't do that either.
Stiff upper lip and all that. So, Brandon, any favorites on yours?
Just one and very quick thought that I wanted to say at the very end was that even if one doesn't like this film, it's easy enough to point out that it does have a lot of quality to it.
Oh yeah, that's why I was pointing
I can say, I mean, one of my least favorite films of all time, American Beauty. I hate that film with a passion. But
it's shot and put together impeccably.
It is a very put together film. It's a very well made film. So I can respect how it was done, but yeah. So I mean, that's the thing is I think that's a way of looking at it. But as far as scenes, there's two that stick out. One is at the very beginning, where you actually see them in the rain, and she makes oh gosh, whatever her name is, Maggie Smith's character makes Mary get out of the car in the middle of the pouring rain to help her with a thermos, and it really does establish the master servant relationship and just how dismissive they are,
this thing.
and also kind of how helpless the wealthy are in comparison to it, because these people are in the position to murder their employers at almost any time pretty easily. And that shows it right away. But of course, my favorite of favorites is the speech given at the end about the perfect servant. It is an excellent one, and one I also take into account in my other work, because there's a lot of similarities there. Anticipating needs, anticipating
Mhm.
feelings and thoughts.
Mhm.
It is a wonderful thing.
Well, this is something
Mhm.
that is touched on in Manor House that, where these people that are supposed to be invincible, or whatever,
Mhm.
they know your secrets. They know everything. They know your
Right.
your proclivities. They know everything about you. And if they
And the
want
thing is,
to,
people like that don't even ask to tell you that shit.
yeah, like
I
if they
mean,
want
Yeah.
to, because they're supposed to know everything about you because they're supposed to know what you like.
I've been
That's-
delivering
Right.
people's mail for like fucking 12 years right here. Okay.
Yeah,
There's people,
exactly.
those same people that I deliver their mail for the mail that I now work with doing gas. So you'd be surprised the shit people tell gas attendants.
Yeah.
Right.
Open up about their financial situation and their house and what they
Mhm.
own. And it's
As
like,
a
what?
librarian, you'd be surprised.
Oh
Why-
yeah. Oh yeah.
Or the
I mean,
here, like
I hear a
Working
lot
the
of
call. Yeah.
your mental health. You're a therapist.
But yeah, no, I mean, in all sorts of anytime you have interpersonal dealings on the job, there's the potential you'll get the talkers that share
Yeah.
more information
they
than
should.
you would have expected.
Overshare.
Right.
Well,
But
when I was a barista, I would have people like
Right.
talk to me. I'm like, dude,
Right.
I serve you coffee. I'm not a bartender.
Right.
And they would be like looking at me like I'm crazy, like I'm so rude. Like I don't want to hear your life story. I don't want. I don't.
Right.
Here's your fucking frappuccino. Take it and down your face.
All right.
But it's like
So
with this type of thing, there's sort of like very, very, very private and personal interactions where you are with them
mhm.
multiple hours in a day. You're dressing them.
Mhm.
You're taking their underwear off. You're drawing their bath. You're putting the toothpaste on their toothbrush, and they are confiding in you. That's a different level of personable customer service, if you want to call it that. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then somehow they turn around and act like they're talking to a wall. You got the you have that one scene where Nesbitt's like, "Oh, it's nobody. Don't worry." And you've got the
And Freddie
and
really
then
had the fucking nerve to say some shit like that.
and then but it shows. And actually, one thing that's pointed out repeatedly in all three commentaries that I don't know how many of y'all picked up on this on your first viewing, or Brandon and Kim, if you picked up on it later. Every scene in the film, there is a servant either on screen or waiting just off stage.
Oh yeah.
Every
I've not
scene
noticed
there is a servant, and that's to show that they're everywhere. They're always there. They're always listening, watching, whatever. And
Now
yet,
that I think about it,
and
certain
yet
ones
you have
I
that.
didn't think about more have like
Right.
people in the background of them.
Right.
But
And that was another thing they did. Everyone had schedules made up. Everyone was going about the house doing tasks as if they actually lived there, and so people were caught on camera, basically working. And so you would have people passing the scenes that they weren't just told, "Oh, walk across the screen." They were actually moving around the set doing work. So that was an interesting touch, I thought. But and yet, my point I was going to make was they're always there, they're always watching, they're always listening, and yet you have that inspector going, "Well, I'm only interested in talking to those that had
no kidding,
to the dead man."
who's such a moron.
Yeah. But and I do love that line, and that's probably one of my favorites. But my favorite line easily is the one where she's like, "Oh, but none of us are going to see it." But most of Maggie Smith's moments are just great, and the scenes with the constable actually doing real police work and being dismissed, I just love those. There's a lot of great stuff. I agree with Brandon about the perfect servant speech. That was a great speech. I like the moment when Clive Owen says, "Can't a man hate his father?" I just thought that was a great reveal.
The way he
Yeah.
revealed it was definitely good. I
Right.
agree with that he just he
Right.
just can't a man hate his father, and it's like, oh shit,
Right.
that's his father. Like I was kind of starting to suspect that before he revealed it, but when he revealed it, it was cool, and the way he did it was really good. So.
And then we got that nice scene at the end again, where you find out that Trentham's finally seeing Mary with a little more respect, and she's talking about, well, what do you think will happen if they do find the killer? I hate to see someone hanged over something I said.
Yeah, I love that.
And then Mary's like, yes, and what good would it do anyway? Basically saying the same line that Mrs. Wilson had said to her.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the end of it. And I will also, one other thing I wanted to throw out that I did not mention, I didn't think to mention before. This movie was my introduction to Kelly MacDonald, and she has become one of my favorite actresses, and I just love her in this one.
Wait,
but
who is she?
Not Trainspotting?
I had not seen Trainspotting before this.
Okay, I saw Trainspotting before this movie, and I'm like,
yeah.
I was impressed with her. I was enthralled with her before this movie. Like,
but of course,
I haven't seen those movies yet either.
Well, she of course, Kelly MacDonald, Mary.
You mean Mitty?
Mitty, yes. And then of course she would go on to do stuff like No Country for Old Men and the co-starring role in Boardwalk Empire. Another great show there. I love that one. So very good times all around. But anyway, I do apologize for running so long. I kind of thought it might, but we were.
I thought it would be like 20 minutes and done, but
no, there was so much to unpack in this movie, and we do have
so
a
much
couple.
I could not care about this movie.
Yeah, Dave was probably doing the same with me.
Well, again, yes, again, I do appreciate.
It would have been cut off at 2 hours.
Everyone who braved this film, I do appreciate. And it is a shame that Dustin. It is a shame Dustin gave up. I would have been curious to hear his thoughts. But
he said he actually was getting into the movie.
Yeah, I know. So maybe he'll give it another chance. That'd be good.
Is kind of wondering what his thoughts are on that, but
Well, yeah. We'll never know. I know Dane said he enjoyed it. It's probably good that we might have gone another hour.
I'm sure Dane actually would have liked this film.
We would have gone at least 5 hours with Dane on.
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't think so.
No, we wouldn't. That would cut us off by that point.
I would have cut it off too. But anyway, and we should go ahead and wrap up. We'll do our outros, and starting with Kroll.
I'm Kroll. Real name is Ron. Just play EverQuest 2 and then EverQuest again, and I was Kroll, and nickname for that is Kroll. So my buddy Mo here decided to call me Kroll, like on voice chat and everywhere. Basically, like that was my real name. So I just kind of stuck and started using it a lot. So I guess if I ever get arrested again, I'll have to use it as an alias.
I'll bet.
You been arrested? Okay.
I've been arrested a few times. Actually,
you never know.
Too, but that's not the point.
You can be arrested for a lot of things.
I was in prison for 6 days for being broke. Basically.
Okay, we'll talk about that later off the air.
Okay. Anyways, but I'm disabled, so I can't work. I watch movies, I watch TV shows, I read books on my Kindle. I play a lot of app games. I used to play MMOs a lot, like I was just saying. I love video games of all kinds. Play on PS4 once in a while. Like say I'm disabled, so I can't use my left hand. So unfortunately, PS4 and console games are a little more difficult to play. But I'm still a gamer, so I still try. No, that's basically me. I don't have a YouTube channel. Or anything, but I come on these podcasts and have a lot of fun talking about the movies, even if I didn't exactly enjoy them. I always try to find something I enjoy or something interesting about the film. So, I really try to give them a shot and try to see if I can, I like the films or not. So that's why I enjoy this. I enjoy, watching movies that I probably wouldn't watch myself, or watching movies that other people suggest that I really do love. So it's fun.
Exactly.
And I enjoy it. So that's basically it.
Good deal. And I agree. That's one of the reasons I enjoy doing this too. Forrest, why don't you give us your little spiel?
All right, Forrest Bennett. I'm an independent film producer and occasional actor based in Long Island, New York. Also a movie and comic book enthusiast, and I'm also on another podcast called Nostalgia Time with Kid Champagne, and also a web show, a web show / public access show here in New York called Under the Radar, where very soon we'll be doing our best and worst of 2021.
All right, very good. Tammy.
Yes, well, my name is Tammy. I come on here and enjoy listening to everybody's opinions about the movies and finding out more about them and watching them. I go on David's other one and do the same, and it's been a lot of fun, and that's about it.
And David's your fiance.
All right.
Do I have to admit it?
You do.
What happened?
Do you have to let me marry you? That question as we fall asleep tonight.
All right.
Yeah.
How about you, Mo?
Well, I like this. Okay, it was pretty. We're pretty much all going to be doing super rad stuff together over the next year or two. We got the monthly Ghibli discussion, which is going to always
that was
net
pretty
some
fun.
cool people. Looking forward to the next one. Thank you, Jacob, for getting involved in the one that we did. It was amazing.
Cool.
I don't know, man. I just tune into my channel and see what happens. That's basically what's going on right now. So, no plan. Just come over there and hang out.
All right. Sounds good. And I guess let's see here. I'll go ahead. I guess skip Dave for now and do Brandon and Kim.
There you go.
Go ahead, Kim. Give us your.
Is it Dave?
Dave is being skipped because he's the last.
Yeah, we
Okay.
said Kim.
His channel.
Come on.
Okay,
Kimberly.
well, my name is Kim. I am. Stop it, Rosie. Stop.
Don't you tell me
am
what
sorry.
to do.
Hi, Rose.
I am SeptumSin / Brandon's wife. I occasionally come on to these talks because it's something will, maybe or may not interest me, like this movie, which I'm very passionate about. I have my own YouTube channel called Kim Creates Stuff, where I do journaling and art stuff and occasionally movie stuff. So check me out there on YouTube or Instagram at Bugs Boom. So there you go.
And of course, I'm SeptumSin, SeptumSin versus the world. We love our physical media out here, and we've been pretty busy this past month. Matter of fact, our first podcast on Bad Ben debuted last Friday, where we covered the first Bad Ben movie, and by the end of this month, we should be covering Stillmanville Road, which is the second Bad Ben movie. So we're going to be working on getting together to record that, and Mo has been gracious enough to join us on the journey, and Kim and a couple others. So it's going to be a fun ride, I think. We also had our discussion just yesterday for our anime anticlimax for what was it? The Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
That one was a fun discussion as well. So you should check that out. But of course, this week we are doing a look back at Anhedenia films on the Anhedenia project, because I just finished watching the latest release, Fleas 2 Home Remedies, which we talk about watching films that we might not want to watch otherwise. That would probably be about right. But I'll be coming out with the episode for that one, not this Thursday, but the next Thursday. That will be out, so you too can figure it out. And Dave, you should definitely watch that one. I think you will love it. And Jake, don't watch it. I think you'll hate it. I know both of y'all, so I can safely say it. So with that being said, that's everything.
All right, and Dave, how about?
Alrighty, my name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore, where we go on about different levels of films on various different levels. And I think we have a lot of fun doing it, no matter whether we are torturing ourselves or not. But we enjoy, I think, some of the camaraderie that goes along with it. So hopefully you have been entertained by each of the different opinions and come back with us next week.
All right.
I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where we kind of do the same thing on with a different group of people, and go on and do my own video pickups and my own video reviews. So check some of those out.
All right. And so, about next week, or I guess I should say, I am Kotobukijake. I am on SeptumSin versus the World as co-host. I didn't occur to me to do my own outro, so I'll just say real quick that yeah, we had a good talk. I enjoyed joining Mo for the Nausicaa talk. That was pretty cool, and we had the Monte Cristo talk, and interesting little parallel with that. I didn't realize there were two people last night, Maya Nakahara, and tonight Kelly MacDonald. We had two days in a row where favorite actresses of mine who happened to share my birthday. I think that's pretty fun. But anyway, next week we will have a twofer where we will be looking at some somewhat more serious films involving divisions between people in this country. We'll be looking at the Ang Lee Civil War era film Ride with the Devil, 1999 flick with Tobey Maguire, Skeet Ulrich, and Jewel that takes place on the western fringe.
I was just saying I love Jewel. Sorry.
Oh yes,
Oh my
and
God.
and
Okay.
I love her too. But the takes place on the western fringes of in basically what you might call no man's land of the Civil War era. Very interesting film. And then we'll be moving forward for very differently Spike Lee and his film that kind of put him on the map, Do the Right Thing, about one very, very, very hot day
in Brooklyn.
Yes. And yeah, so that's what we have in store for us next week. Look forward to it. All right. So, and I guess, does anyone else have any final thoughts, or are we all?
Nope.
I think we're all good.
All
That's
right.
Yeah.
Good
So
night, everybody.
I was just gonna say I share a birthday with The Rock.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, he's getting canceled right now, so no.
Why?
Oh.
The
Oh
Rock.
God, I don't even want to know. Fuck
Okay.
you, cancel culture.
Good night.